Hello. The time is now 6:30 p.m. If you haven't signed up to speak, please quickly finish that. So welcome to our January 7th Town Council meeting for our beautiful town of Poetry, Texas. We welcome you and want you to feel heard, valued, informed, and connected to your town and its council. We welcome diversity of opinion and want minority views as well as majority views to be heard. We also appreciate mutual respect despite opposing view. Your opinions, suggestions, and comments in favor of or against the topic are welcome. However, your questioning and interrogations will not be acknowledged. This is a town council meeting and not a courtroom. At this time, I need to remind the public that a disruption of this meeting may be considered a criminal offense according to Texas Penal Code 3813 and 4205. You must be signed up to speak during the meeting and stay on topic according to state law. To preserve the order and decorum of the meeting, any person who makes profane, slanderous, threatening remarks or becomes disruptive during the meeting will be asked to leave or may be escorted out by a peace officer and given a citation. Sherry Vinson, our volunteer clerk, will now take roll call.
Councilmember Mike Jaffe.
Here.
Councilmember Simeon White.
Here.
Councilmember Brian Vinson.
Here.
Mayor Tara Sinkovich.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Fowler.
Here.
Councilmember Tom Anderson.
Here.
Thank you, Sherry, and quorum is confirmed. At this time, Councilmember Mike Jaffe will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and then followed by our invocation.
Please join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this beautiful weather. Thank you for the daylight increasing day by day. Thank you for our wonderful community and just all the many amazing qualities that you bestowed upon us and it. I pray that our time together here tonight would be peaceful, would redeem you, and would just accomplish the goals of our community as best we know them. I pray all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Mike. So we do want to have under items of community interest, thanks to Sherry Vinson for typing up the minutes and clerking in the absence of a secretary. We do have a notice that Wednesday, tomorrow, January 18th, is the first day, and Friday, February 17th, is the last day for a candidate to file an application for the May 6th election. This is our first opportunity at hosting a candidate election. We also, at this time, the town is taking candidates for those who might want to voluntarily annex into the town until March 31st, 2023. You can email the contact at poetrytexas.org for more information. Under reports, we do have a signed and filed at the courthouse of Hunt County interlocal agreement for our roads. That was extended to 2 years instead of a 1 year, so that's good news. And they have been very good to us and really good to work with. So primarily we join together with them and we submit project sheets, and then we come to the table with requests for new asphalt generally, and or it might be something else, but new asphalt, and then they provide the labor and equipment. And secondly, we have a report for the financial report. It is the bank statement without the account numbers, and that's all it is. So December end of 2022, we have some deposits, $100 from CRS, $100 annual fee, a public information request of $12.75 deposited. FEC franchise fees came in of $11,237.27. Donations from Councilmember Vinson and White for workman's comp, $331. donations from Brett Patterson and Poetry Plaza for the septic of $4,000. Encore franchise fees of $41.92.55. And then under withdrawals and debits, we had, it was $204.94 for a prepaid Visa card for the online forum. In Computer Solutions, it was $478.80 for the annual renewal, which was divided into 2 payments. We talked about that last time. Down below, you'll see the $252, so that is paid in full for the year. We got some stamps, office supplies, the Wix website, 1948, more office supplies. The checks that paid, we have legal fees came in. That check did clear for $5,011.28 to Messer Fort McDonald. The Collin County Septic Design, $250. The last payroll check of $97.50 to Teresa Scholender, who had to go on full disability, sadly. The newsletter, $56.37. We did pay for the annual audit. That was $4,250. Print time did print. The envelopes themselves were donated, but the professional-looking return address was printed in 2 colors, and that was $125. The Longhorn Organics, the 5-year lease of $500, that's what the attorney had recommended. The Faith Temple Baptist, $50, and then 6 more FEC reimbursement checks came through for a total of $385.22. So we have an ending balance of $46,014.75 and 12/31 of 2022. Okay, so moving on to H, consent agenda. We have the minutes for November 15th, the regular council meeting. And that is 4 pages, pretty concise there. All those in favor of accepting the minutes for November 15th as written?
Tara, on item 6, I think there's a typo where it says, discuss and take action on septic installation in Newtown Hall. 6,400 bid with 4,000 donations. It's 500 total cost to the town.
So if there's a problem, we need to probably move that item to the
Well,
regular agenda.
Okay. I think it's a typo, but just checking.
I don't see a typo there.
Okay, well, 6,400 minus 4,000 is 2,400. I don't see where it says 500 total cost.
So 6,400, it should be clarified. It's 500 total cost to the town, but let's go ahead and move this, since we are going to discuss that. Let's go ahead and move that. So item 1 will move to regular agenda, and then we can discuss that. So let's move on to the minutes for November 22nd. Are there any comments on that? Or do you want to move that to the regular agenda? That's 3 pages.
I had no comments.
Okay. Any comments on that? Okay, so then we'll go ahead and take a vote on that. So do we have a vote to approve the minutes as written for November 22nd?
Make a motion to approve it. November 22nd minutes.
Okay, all those, second? Okay, we have a motion to, by Anderson, seconded by White. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, moving to the regular agenda, we have the minutes for November 15th. And then go ahead and state your, okay, so, thank you.
I guess my question is on item 6. It says discuss and take action on septic installation costs for Newtown's $6,400 bid with $4,000 in donation from citizens, $500 total cost to the town. Well, there's something, I guess, missing. Because
There is.
64 minus 4,000 is 2,400. So
Okay, so Mr. Vickers, who was the approved bid, quote on that, did donate the difference on that. So it ended up being a $500 total cost to the town, but you're right, that needs to be reworded to, and we can look at that.
So Vickers at 1,900 or something?
Okay, his bid was $8,500 minus $4,000 deduction, $4,500. So it was actually a $4,500 quote. That's where the correction needs to be. Instead of saying $6,400, it needs to say $4,500.
4,500, okay.
Mm-hmm. Or you could actually word, as Councilmember Fowler said, you know, the original bid was $8,500, and then he was going to donate $4,000 of that to the town. So it ends up being $4,500, and then with Poetry Plaza and with Mr. Patterson's donations of $2,000 each, it ends up being a $500 total cost to the town.
I think it'd be good to have Mr. Vickers' donation on the record. So.
Okay, all right.
Well, there's something else, because we did, this number, I think we just need to wait and postpone this, because this was the November 15th meeting. I discussed research and low dose, and then we came back with another bid in December. And I think it'll be clear, these numbers might be correct.
For that day.
For that date. Now, the $500 obviously doesn't fit in there, but I think it needs a little more research before, because we had a lower bid at first, and then when we did the redesign or something, it went up and he increased his donation, but I think we need to look at it. We
Okay.
didn't vote on that until
Okay,
December.
we'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can just postpone that, take a deeper look at that. I want to get it correct. Okay, so on the regular agenda, discuss and take action on candidate Amanda Bunch for city secretary vacancy, number 1. So if you have Miss Amanda Bunch, will you go ahead and come on up here, and you can stand up here. So I can go ahead and go over her resume. So she was a candidate filing for the Genesis Center, and Amanda Lewis, who is the mayor of Forney, when I told her we had a vacancy, she sent over her application that she applied for Genesis Center, and they chose someone who needed more hours, and so, but she really thought that she was a strong candidate. So she has a Bachelor of Business Administration from Texas A&M Commerce. She graduated from Terrell High School. We have here, she's proficient in Microsoft Office programs, QuickBooks. She is conversational Spanish, fingerprinted with the state of Texas. She has been in the past a notary public. She has been a receptionist. She's worked for an HR assistant for Terrell ISD. She's worked for Stevens Outdoor. She also she was a commercial administrative assistant from 1996 to March 2010, the American National Bank of Texas. So immediately I did reach out to Ken Lane, who is retired from there, whom I knew, and he sent over an email, and I can read that to you. It says, please accept this email as my letter of reference for Amanda Bunch. Amanda was my assistant at the American National Bank in Terrell for several years. I was regional president for Kaufman and Van Zandt counties, which included 7 banks. Amanda handled my administrative functions as regional and served as commercial lending assistant for A&B of Terrell. She's very capable, self-starter that functions very effectively with little supervision. Amanda is smart with exceptional secretary skills. Her work ethic and integrity were without reproach. I highly recommend her for the position we discussed and truly believe she has the ability to become a valuable asset for the poetry community. We also received from Terrell Independent School District. Is there a council member who would like to read that? Okay. So on January 10th, 2023, it says, "Dear Hiring Committee, as a clerical substitute, Amanda Bunch has demonstrated the characteristics needed to be a successful team member. One, she's a quick learner. Serving in a clerical role, there are various computer programs, phone functions, and paper trails that must be learned, updated, and utilized consistency for the daily operations to progress seamlessly. Amanda has been able to join our team and learn the processes and functions quickly to be able to support the team's efficiency. She does not depend solely on others to tell her answers and solutions. She is willing to search them out on her own, and she learns through collaboration with others. Connection. Amanda brings light to the office through her positive attitude, professionalism, and desire to support and serve others. She's courtesy and patient interactions with others and in difficult situations. This characteristic will support her in any new role as she becomes part of a team and work alongside others to promote the success. Dependable. Amanda is consistent and can be counted on to complete a task given to her. She organizes and uses her time efficiently. Her drive for excellence will keep her motivated as she grows and learns in a new role. I am pleased to recommend Amanda for position." And then from her church, a character reference, she's pleased to advise you of the character of Mrs. Amanda Bunch. I've known Amanda since 2001. This is the senior pastor, Chad Flowers, of Emmanuel Pentecostal Church. She was a young adult at the time. She is since married and had children who also attend her church with her now. Amanda and her family are faithful, not only in attendance, but also very involved in ministry on multiple levels. She serves on a student ministry team, and Amanda has great people skills. She usually converses with the young and the elder in our assembly as well as with guests. In addition, she's able to make judgment calls if necessary, but is eager to learn from others. Amanda Bunch holds a very upstanding reputation in our assembly, and I highly recommend Amanda to you for employment in your town. Okay, so any comments? And if you feel like we need to go into executive session, we can do that at any time. We'll have to state the statute, but since she's standing here before us, does any of the council have questions for Ms. Bunch?
Before we hop into that, I just want to say she's also known in the community, but some people have actually had somebody reach out to me and see that she was applying for the job and said she was a great person. They didn't speak to her professional skills, but we'll get to that. But she said they said that she's a great person and that they've known her for a while. So,
Thank you for that.
certainly.
And I'll personally vouch for you.
Thank you, Terry.
I've known Amanda a long time and friendship with her family, and I've told some people, you probably won't meet a sweeter person than Amanda Bunch, and that's
Thank you,
sincere. And I do know a little bit about her professional abilities. She helped with my accounts as well at the bank, and I know Ken holds a high expectation of his employees. So if Ken Lane, the previous president, will vouch for her, I probably don't have any questions for you.
Thank you, Terry. Anything else? I'm open to any questions you may have.
Well, are you familiar with just how crazy this job can be?
Do you want to fill me in?
It would take all night, so no. Are you comfortable in chaotic situations?
Okay, are we talking conflict resolution here?
Not always. Just
Okay.
There's a lot of people rowing in different directions,
Okay.
but we all have to make sure the boat goes forward.
Right.
So, are you able to kind of coordinate efforts with people who have very strong but disparate opinions?
Okay, that's a great question, Councilman Benson. I do feel like I can come into this position with the ability to remain completely neutral. I understand, I don't know a lot about, I'm from Terrell, and I've been there all 43 years of my life, but I mean, just driving down Poetry, I can see signs. People are for the incorporation, people are against the incorporation. There are people on both sides of the fence. And so I do feel like I could come in totally unbiased with no ulterior motive. I'm here to perform a job and just support the community in any way possible.
What version of Office products are you familiar with?
Okay, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. I am proficient in QuickBooks. I work in QuickBooks every week, so I know that's not an office product, but I know y'all use QuickBooks as well. So very comfortable with QuickBooks, doing profiles for customers, vendors, invoicing, receiving payments. I can balance bank statements through QuickBooks. So pretty much any of that.
And how about your typing skills?
Typing skills are very great. I'm very an accurate typist. I have not done a words per minute test in a long time, and so I actually did one before I came here. So in case I got asked that question, and it said I type 86 words per minute with 98% accuracy.
Wow.
I think that's faster than I think.
Yeah, I was drilled in typing in the 8th grade, so yeah,
Yeah,
I got that.
A professional secretary is expected to do 70 to 90, so that's on the high side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank
So
you.
she
I wasn't sure about the range, but I do know I type pretty fast, so.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's great. Well, something I like to ask any potential employee that I interview is just briefly, why are you interested in the job? What attracts you to it?
Okay, the appeal for this job for me really was the part-time hours, the flexibility. Again, like Mayor Sinkovich said, I had applied for a part-time position. It was a few more hours than I wanted, and really I felt like they needed a full-time CPA, honestly, is what they really needed. So it wasn't a match for me, but I love that this is part-time. It's flexible. We have 2 daughters, and they're very involved in school and church activities, and so I love the idea of making part-time income and still being able to be involved with my family.
So how many hours is part-time? How many hours are you considering?
Well, I think that the council approved 15 hours per week. Is that correct?
That was for the previous secretary, but that's not necessarily the.
Well, it
the-
is right now, up to 15.
Up to,
Yeah.
that's true.
Right now, that was the
Okay.
wording.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it said on the application on the website, so that's what I was going by.
And you're good with those, a lot of those hours being in the late evening?
Are you talking about the meetings? Yes, I am.
Okay.
Or in general for hours, just if you have to jump on something, on weekends, a deadline pops up, it's hard to manage all the different deadlines from county to state, etc. Are your hours, and do you want to work at a job that's so here and there for hours that you're willing to work an evening on the weekends and be on call at all times? Is that something you're interested in or have done in the past?
Not really, honestly. I think when I looked at this job description, it said there were a couple of days that were preferred. I'm good. I totally understand Wednesdays because that's when the town hall needs to be open to the community for any kind of request. Fridays are a little tough. I was hoping if you decide I am a fit for this job, I was hoping to negotiate a different day than Friday. But as far as weekends, I had not actually considered that.
So it really depends on the date for the regular scheduled town hall meeting. So lately, we've been getting the packet up by 4 p.m. Fridays. If we did happen to move our days to Monday nights, then that would back up to Thursday. So, we don't know. That's still in limbo. But as far as it would be generally one night, or there's a possibility if there's something to go awry. It's not very often, Councilmember White, but there's a possibility if there needed to be a correction or change before the hard deadline. There might be, and I think in a year's time there might be 2 times that's happened where it would be a Friday night kind of
Right,
thing.
and that's understandable, and especially if you have, a laptop that is shared in the office that could be taken home. That's that would be
Yeah.
a consideration too.
See, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I noticed you said you taught Spanish in elementary school. And the last election, we had some issues because our election, the voting has to be both English and Spanish. Are you fluent in Spanish?
I would not call myself fluent, but I am conversational. And so when I worked at the American National Bank, I was paid for bilingual pay to help translate for the customers that came into the bank. So I would not call myself completely fluent, but I can carry on a conversation.
That would be excellent about election time.
We do have some citizens. Is that all from council? Okay.
Well, just briefly, I wanted to touch on what Councilmember Vincent was saying earlier about hours, because we had briefly discussed that we might, the town's still developing, need more hours for a secretary in the future. And I would just like to know if we end up hiring you, because I think you're a great candidate, by the way. But if we do, kind of what you would want to do maximum. Is 15 kind of the cap for you, or are you saying, 20 is fine as well, or what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Okay, my thoughts on that. Our family owns a business in Terrell. We've been in business over 50 years. It's a flooring company. I do work there 1 day a week, so that day is booked, set aside for the to do the QuickBooks stuff on that side. The 2 day a week that was mentioned in the job description is ideal for me, but I will not say I'm opposed to more possibly.
Thank you.
Okay, we have citizen Shelley Smith. Was Robin first?
They're both on the list.
Okay. So Amanda, you can go ahead and sit down there in front, and that way if we need you to pop back up, we'll do that. Okay.
She sounds great. I have a couple of questions. Will Ms. Bunch be working regular hours at either of the town hall offices?
I imagine so.
Okay. Will she have, does the mayor determine those hours?
The council voted on that.
Okay, so they are set hours.
Well, not completely.
The number of hours.
Oh, the number of hours is up to 15 is what the council members have said a week. And then, but as far as the town hall hours, the only set day is Wednesdays 12 to 4. But other than that, that is flexible.
Okay, and will she determine those hours or you guys? The flexible hours?
I think that we should give her flexibility based on the needs at hand. But
Okay, and will she have access to the town computers and printers?
sure.
Would expect.
Okay. Will she be under the supervision of the mayor and given specific tasks to do, like the PIRs, the bookkeeping, paying bills, et cetera?
That is all in the job description.
So, yeah, so she'll be under your supervision?
Mhm.
Okay. And is this a permanent position or a temporary?
I believe it's a permanent position.
Thank you.
Robin Followill.
One second. Terry, could you move your mic a little closer to you?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What did I do?
So, like Councilmember Vincent asked, about dealing with conflict, hostility. So you've never worked at another city, correct? You worked at the city of Terrell?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I did not.
Okay. So as long as you can handle lots of pressure, conflict, and meeting needy, demanding people, you can handle that stress, then I think you're going to be good for it.
Okay, so any other comments by council? Do you feel like we need to go in the back room and have a closed session to talk about things, or do you have a feel of what you want to do?
I have no need. But if y'all want to. I have no need to go back there.
I have no problem. I'm
Okay.
ready to vote now.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept her as Amanda's Brunch's secretary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Anderson, seconded by White, to accept the candidate Amanda Bunch for city secretary. All those in favor? And you pass unanimously. Congratulations, Amanda. Okay, and you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go. If you want to, pick up whatever you can from Miss Vinson, that's fine too. So, all right, number 2, discuss Encore regarding revenues for the town of Poetry. So I did ask Miss Cindy Tahan, representative of Encore, to attend, but she did have a previous town that she had to be at. And so I know she's very busy with 16 different towns she deals with. But she did give me a letter, and so she did give me permission to read that letter. So Mayor Sinkovich, as a follow-up to our phone call, we are working diligently to reevaluate the city limit status of our customers within the town of Poetry. Until we can complete our study, I have no way of knowing how many customers may be coded incorrectly, nor the impact that would have on the town's franchise payments. Then once we complete our study, our regulatory department will need to evaluate our findings and get back with me. I would like to remind you that Encore has system-wide rates. A residential customer inside the town limit pays the same Encore rates as a residential customer outside the town limits. Therefore, when a customer's account was coded to be inside the town limits, they did not experience any change in Encore rate structure. So any customer that may be found to be coded incorrectly inside the town limits will not receive a discount or refund, since their rates were never altered when they were coded within the town limits. Any errors found will only impact the franchise payments to the town, since that is based on the number of kilowatt hours sold within the town limits. I realize the town is anxious to get these results. This is a time-consuming activity, but we're working to complete the study as promptly as possible. I will get back with you as soon as I have more information for you.
And maybe y'all had this conversation when you were speaking. It sounded like you had a phone call. So I went back and reviewed the June 15th, 2021 meeting when she come the first time, and she did a really good job. And as far as I know, I don't think anything in this email's contradictory. But I guess I'm confused because I had we were sharing the mic back then, if you remember. So I had a question, and I don't think it was recorded. But then I think it was Councilman Vinson that asked the same thing. He asked, because she said it's a system-wide rate, and Vinson asked if Poetry residents were being charged at this time, and Cindy's response was, they're not being charged to Poetry residents at this time. So that would make me assume that rates have increased since then, or did they eat the franchise payment? And that's kind of what I wanted to ask her.
As the mayor just read that letter, what it sounded like to me is she is putting things in 2 different baskets. One is a rate rebate, which she feels Encore would be responsible for, and then it's not going to happen because their rates are system-wide, and so it's not going to make a difference. And then the other basket seems to be the franchise fee basket, and based on precedent with FEC, it seems like she would expect us to rebate that if such a rebate becomes available. But she's basically saying that Encore's not paying anything back.
Well, I didn't timestamp it, but she'd made the comment that their franchise fees are rolled into their rates.
They
that
are.
their
They do
customers
it-
don't see a line item.
I do
Right.
not, that's correct.
They do
So
not
with-
see a line item.
So with that being said, if we're not being charged to Poetry residents at this time, then was
Yeah.
there an increase in their rate,
And we-
which you should be able to look at your bill
Right.
maybe and see
Sherry and I
that,
evaluated our bill, and there hasn't been
a rate increase?
a rate increase that wasn't a rate increase directly attributable to a system-wide rate increase.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, to my understanding, it was spread across all their system, all their customers. So, if they have, I'm making up numbers, but 100,000 customers and only 1,000 in Poetry, it's not charged to the 1,000 in Poetry, it's charged across their system to 100,000. But because there might be less people in Poetry, we might see a decrease in the revenue that we see in the next few months, was my understanding of it.
Mine as well.
We even discussed the rate. I mean, she quoted .003589. We did the math up here, and I think it was $5 a month per customer. So if we were doing all that math and she was having this conversation that they weren't being charged at the time, how did they write us a franchise fee if they never increased their rates?
Well,
They just
remember,
eat it
yeah, they kind of, that's the best way.
and wait for their next rate increase?
That's-
Yeah, I think they're making it enough that they
Well,
assume that
Yeah.
everybody's going to be on the franchise fee, and then if you're
Well,
not, then you get a,
You
they
remember,
get
go
a
ahead.
bonus. Go ahead.
You remember that they were the first check we received of like
Yes.
$10,000, and they gave us from the
Backwards.
time we incorporated all the way through, even though we didn't have an agreement. So they were trying to help the town out by giving us the back of all that, and that was a guesstimate for them.
So I asked for this agenda item for two reasons. One, if, and it doesn't sound like it is, but if the residents are due a refund, she'll tell us and we'll handle that accordingly.
There is no refund.
Okay, so two, are we going to owe money back to Encore for overpayment?
Well, okay, so that may be a possibility, but there will be no refunds to residents. She made that abundantly clear because it's not handled a line item. There's no way to do that.
Okay.
So, but she seemed to imply that going forward, it would just be, and they are going to have to make field, she said they pulled out the CAD, and they're having to go house by house to figure that out. There's a few that they have questions about. She said they're going to have to come out and look at it, field study, and then they will evaluate each one individually that they have questions about. Because remember, it goes wherever that point of delivery is, so that meter base, and it could vary, so you might have 3/4 of the home in the town, and then the meter base could be outside the town. So it varies per case to case, and some of them are cut and dry, but then some of them aren't. So,
So what was their franchise payment this quarter? 4,500? 42, no. What was it? 41.92. So this is going to be typically a lower rate franchise fee payment. So I guess just what I'm getting at is what is our liabilities right now? So if we assume 25%?
well, FEC was around 20%, I believe.
Okay, so 20%, and we use the 4,000. Obviously, we know the summer months are going to have higher franchise fees due to kilowatt hour used.
Well, actually, I saw the detail on that. So it was September, October, November. September was 5,000. October was less. It was like around 2,000, and then the other one was November was 3,000. So that when you have great weather, your cost is less, right? That's our franchise fees are less.
So 14,000 as opposed to 16, and at 20% of that, that's $2,800. Just so the council's fully aware of our potential liability there.
Right.
So 2,800, maybe $3,500, just so y'all know.
And one thing that, with and they primarily do service in Kaufman County, and Kaufman County residents, a lot of them are closer to the road, but they are looking house by house to make sure that they get it correct.
And I'm still playing it out in my head is if everybody's, if the cost is truly distributed across their entire network and they're not being charged a franchise fee, that basically Encore has just marked up their rates to a point that they include the franchise fee, then will there be any return? So, I mean, my pole's right on the road, so I'm not getting one. But if somebody's due one, we need to make sure that it gets back to them, just as we did for those on Hunt.
There will be no refund
But
for those individuals.
from Encore.
From Encore or from us, because there's no way to tell that. There was never a line item.
Right.
Well, I mean, even if there was a way, there's nothing to refund. I mean, it says in this letter, if they're being
Right.
honest, it says a residential customer inside the town limit pays the same Encore rate as a residential customer outside the town limit. So if that's true, there's nothing to refund
Yeah.
because there's no difference in what they're paying.
So it should be zero, but we have up to approximately $3,000 that may be out there.
Well, we might owe Encore, but we
Right.
definitely don't owe people. The people weren't overpaid, but Encore may have overpaid us.
So,
Correct.
and
That's
the up
correct.
to
That's my
3,000
understanding.
exposure, yeah.
No, I'm glad you did that. All right, so we have citizen Chad West. Okay. Citizen Shelley Smith. Citizen Robin Followill? Citizen Patrick Smith?
Was that letter that you read rather quickly part of the agenda packet?
No, it was not.
Okay, can I take a look at that and read it before I use up my time?
It was confidential, and so I wasn't privy. It does have a confidentiality statement at the bottom, so I didn't feel like that it was appropriate to have that in the packet, except to
So I
council.
can't look at it.
But did you read it verbatim?
I did.
Well, a lot of it I couldn't even understand. You were going so quick and you played off, so. Okay, I don't get to look at it. All right. Did the town of Poetry use the same methodology for Encore customers as it used for the FEC customers on the issue of who has to pay the franchise fee and who doesn't?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
that, it depends on their, they are a unique company. We have agreement with each one of them separately, but the rate is the same.
Okay. So we know from prior meetings that because of the methodology used by the town of Poetry, FEC customers were overcharged or charged the franchise fee.
That's incorrect.
Okay, hold on, man. Can I complete my question, please?
Just don't state things that are incorrect, please.
We know from prior meetings that the methodology the town used was not in compliance with state law with FEC, and it resulted in customers being charged the franchise fee who should not have been charged. True?
No, that's not true.
Okay, then what's wrong with that statement?
Your statement's incorrect because the agreement that we signed with FEC, our lawyers should have put in their point of delivery according to state law, and so that was never itemized in the agreement, and so therefore it wasn't addressed properly. Their interpretation of our map was false. It was inaccurate, and so therefore they made assumptions that were inaccurate.
So there was no fault on the town used the wrong methodology required by state law. It's
The town didn't have
FEC
anything.
misinterpret-
You're going to let me finish?
You won't
No.
let me finish my question.
Okay, I was trying to answer your question, okay? I'm not done with that question, that answer to that question. So what I'm saying is the methodology, you're accusing the town of having a methodology that was inaccurate. That's just not true. The truth is that FEC, when they did theirs, they assumed they understood the map profile that was given to them one way, but it was incorrect. The agreement that we signed with FEC did not address the point of connection or point of delivery as it should have. So had it been in the contract with them, we would have addressed that more specifically. So actually, your statement was false.
Periodically, does FEC send a check to the town of Poetry for the franchise fees they've collected?
It's on a regular basis, every quarter.
Okay. Does Encore do the same?
Yes.
Okay, so Encore, they got franchise fees from somebody and sent them to the town of Poetry, correct?
We've stated what they do.
Okay, and so when the town of Poetry gets this check from Encore for the franchise fees, that came from citizens of Poetry indirectly or directly.
Is that the time? Okay. I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, are you going to answer that question?
We've already addressed that issue
Okay.
adequately. Yep. All right, any other conversation by council?
Since the point wasn't made, I think it bears repeating that there is no line item charged by Encore. Encore does not charge a line item for franchise fees. So from what it appears, it appears that they charge a fee high enough that if a franchise fee is due, they pay it out of their pocket, basically, through the money that they collect from citizens without being able to get into a forensic accounting of their system. We're not going to be able to verify that. We're going to have to take their word for, how they pay it back. But there is nothing that was specifically charged to residents of Poetry, so there would not be something specifically rebated to Poetry.
Well, I
And
think
go-
Patrick's point is, and math is one of my hobbies, is that, theoretically, it was paid by the citizens, but it wasn't paid differently than what was being paid by non-citizens.
Right.
Right, so I think, to me, it's sort of like shrinkage in a department store. When theft occurs, they just raise the price of everything in the store. They don't, go after a particular target, and I think they build into their financial model, I'm sure, that there's going to be fees and accidents and this and that and the other,
Right.
and they just pad their rates, and
That's a
the
good
PUC
analogy.
allows that, and
Yeah, to me, it's like when you get the mattress companies every once in a while say, we'll pay your sales tax. They don't.
no.
They're not paying your sales tax. They're paying you, they're charging you an amount that's reduced by what they're going to pay on sales tax.
Right,
So
which
the
appears
sales
to
tax
be-
still gets paid.
Which appears to be different than the way FEC
Right.
handles it, but
Which is
FEC is a
reversed.
co-op.
Right.
Encore is a different type of entity, so it's probably a part
And
of that.
Encore is much larger,
Yeah.
so it is handled very differently.
All right. That's all I had.
Okay. Any other discussion on this topic? And then just as soon as we know something, we'll have Ms. Tam or another representative here to tell us how they're going to do that, go forward on that. All right, moving all along to number 3, discuss and take action on TxDOT report for FM 986. Okay, so some time ago, we had some citizens who were concerned about the speed, especially those who live on the road, were concerned about the speed on that road. Dogs getting run over and kids at risk. So the council did vote to go ahead and have TxDOT do a speed report. That did come back. They have 5 pages. Lane Solomon of TxDOT for the Kaufman County had told me that they had received a verbal, but the written report did take some time. What they, in a nutshell, basically, they said that the way that they do it is they take the 85th percentile, the 85th percentile of the average speed on the road, and then that's what they suggest. I don't understand that methodology, but that's what apparently they do.
So if there's a lot of people speeding, then they recommend raising the speed limit?
Apparently. It doesn't make I don't understand that rationale, but that's what they do apparently. And I have asked repeatedly for the number of incidences on the road, and we are supposed to have that information, and I haven't been given that information yet. So what they have said, their recommendation to the council is to reduce the speed limit by 5 miles. So instead of the 55 miles per hour, currently they're suggesting it should be reduced to 50. But council can decide if they want to do something differently. We do have jurisdiction in the area, so we can, as a council, we can supersede that. Like, we have jurisdiction in our area.
I just want to make sure I'm following along. I understand that you're not an expert on their methodology.
Not.
But basically, we have a 55 mile an hour. We thought that people were exceeding that speed limit. They did a study, and they used the 85th percentile of the average speed, which we thought was fast. And then they come up and say, well, we need to lower the speed limit. Is that basically is that how it followed? Whether or not, I'm not expecting you to do the math, but is that basically how it went?
And what I think so, to try and answer your question, I couldn't understand exactly if they did it at varying times and varying, days of the week. And we have 5 pages here, and it says date of study here is 6/8/22 on this page, and then the date of this study on page 2 is 6/8/22, and then I will see on the third page, the date of the study is 6/8/22. So to me, if you're gonna, I don't know, it looks like it was on the same day. And so I would think if Friday night traffic would be very different from a Tuesday traffic. So I don't understand that methodology. So I'm not, I don't work for TxDOT, but just common sense, I would think to do a sufficient study, one would take maybe a Friday and a Monday and the different varying times and maybe a Wednesday, and then compile, that and to give a more broad based evaluation. But I don't know.
And from where to where are they proposing this speed?
From County Road 247 to 2326, so that's our southern border to Campground Cemetery.
The whole stretch.
Yeah,
So-
from that corner.
What about our ETJ? Could that be affected by this as well? I mean, is that a power that we have in the ETJ, or is that just
Are you talking
town
about
proper
a speed limit?
Yeah.
No, we only have jurisdiction over, my understanding, over areas that are in our town proper.
That's all our town.
See, because I'm thinking.
This is all our
road
town
is-
proper, though.
Right,
Yeah.
but this is also the road, it's going to connect to ETJ, and it's also going to connect to Terrell along the same road, so people are going to have to adjust their speed limit while going along all of 986. So if we do approve this, we should try to work with Terrell so that they will reduce it as well, because we don't want people having to worry about varying speeds on the same road if we can help it, at least in my mind.
Well, I have heard from citizens who were concerned about that, and I've heard different things. I've tried to keep a open ear, but have said, from that intersection, we have a school, we have churches, we have two churches, we have a school, we have several residences, we have several businesses. They felt like in that area, even, well, this is from that intersection all the way to campground, it wouldn't even necessarily, I've heard you wouldn't even have to have its reduced speed all the way to campground, maybe just to the Poetry, Postal, and Storage. I've heard that comment, maybe from right before the school all the way to Poetry, Postal. Like most towns do. If you have a congested area in a town, you expect a lower rate of speed.
If we decided to make the change, or for that matter, if we just decided to keep it, who in the town is enforcing that speed limit?
Well, currently, we depend on the sheriffs and the constables.
So they would still
No, we
enforce
got
the
Barney
speed
Fife for
limit that we post. It wouldn't, as far as, but it wouldn't come back to the town.
No, it would not. It would be a county, if the county enforces it, then any fines would go back to the county. If we decided to have hire a part-time constable or something and have a one-day-a-month court, then we could get fines. You have speed traps. I'm not saying that that's what we want to do, but there are towns that do that will enforce their own. They'll have a one-day-a-month court where you can, collect fines and that kind of thing. I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but that is an option. And some towns do that. So.
So if you look at this study, each sheet, if you start with sheet 1, that's going to be 247. That's our south border, and each one of these works up. Sheet 3 is a little easier to read. That's from FM 3486 to 1565. But what I want to point out on these sheets, there's kind of a legend down at the bottom, and maybe that's an average. But if you look at each one of these sheets, you'll see the XL square looking with the direction of travel arrow. So from 247, your 85th percentile speed is 65 degrees or 65 miles an hour. Southbound, 62 northbound. Your top speeds are 77, 74. Just to help you get that in your head. The next page, your average speed is your 85th percentile speed, 64 and 59. Then you go to 52, 54, but that's 2 intersections, so you could see why that speed average would decrease. There's not a speed on 3. And then the last one, as you can tell, they're coming to a dead end. Your speeds in the 85th percentile are down to 46 and 51. So that's only to help you understand that. But to your point, Brian, I sit on both sides of this. Yeah, we do have more driveways, driveway densities, people pulling in and out. We do have what I've always referred to as the Autobahn now dumping out onto our roads and crossing to a county road. So I don't fear reducing the speeds by 5 miles an hour, but maybe some conversations with county constables and sheriff's departments to help reduce that speed would be the answer to the citizen complaints as well.
Well, I think as we mentioned the last time this was brought up, several who live on that road have voiced their concern that, they have to take their life in their hands to check their mail from their mailbox. I have, 50 miles an hour is pretty fast if you're trying to check your mailbox on the highway. So if folks are even compliant with that speed, and I know at night they're not, because I hear them. I work late, and I hear, it sounds like a lot of them are going much faster than 55.
But do signs slow people down?
Good, honest people, yes.
Well, the honest people, the 85th percentile is already exceeding the speed limit by 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So if we did do this, who would pay for the signs? It's a state road.
The state would actually pay for those.
They would.
From my understanding.
Okay.
All right, Shelley.
I'd like to hear from citizens.
Shelley Smith.
Now, didn't we have this conversation a year ago?
We did.
And there was a poll put out on Facebook, I believe it was, asking people's opinions on should the road speed limit be slowed down. And the majority of the people who responded said no. And so the mayor deleted the conversation.
It was not.
Am I correct with that?
You're not correct.
Oh, really? What am I wrong on?
It wasn't Facebook.
Oh, was it next door? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I have photocopies of it if you'd
Okay.
like.
So the only reason it was taken down, because we've discussed this before, was because there was personal attacks made and it was going awry. So,
But yet you deleted the conversation. So who ordered the study this year?
actually, this is the study that was done this last summer. So this is a result of the vote of the council from last year.
So this study is last year's study,
It is.
even though it wasn't presented last year.
Remember, I just got the report because I asked for it. So that's what I said in the beginning, is we just got it.
Okay.
So this
All right.
study was done 6/8/22. I asked Lane for it 3 times. He just submitted it in time for this meeting.
Okay, then I would strongly recommend that you do another poll on Nextdoor and Facebook and find out from the people, what would you guys like to do? What's the majority want? And/or do just a quick little, I don't know, inventory. Just call people, ask them. So, anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Robin Followell?
I'm one of those people, I'm not a big speeder. So even in the morning going to work, which I know you're talking, even if you lower it 5 miles an hour, those people that are leaving between 5:30 and 6:30, they're not going to abide by that, because people literally blow by me in the mornings, and I'm going 60, 65 on 987 when there's nobody out there. I personally think, as a citizen, my thing is, and of course everybody else may not be super happy with me saying this, I think a way to slow some of it down is if, and I know it's going to cost money, so I know, but seriously need a red light or something at the intersection at 986 and where the cut across is to 34. I mean, anytime we have a wreck on 986, it's right there at that intersection. And that slows some people down. May not slow everybody down for mailbox people, but it's going to have to slow them down some if we have a red light.
All right, for clarification, are you saying 986 and 1565 or 986 and 3486?
Right,
Okay.
where it's the cut across to 34.
You're about the fourth person who has at least requested not just maybe even a yellow light, a flashing light, something. You're about the fourth person who has requested
I think
that.
it's going to take more than a yellow flashing light, because these people think we live in the country and the yellow flashing light don't mean nothing.
I know Union Valley had this fight with 276 and 1565. I mean, there were several fatalities, and TxDOT did several studies. It's not as easy as.
Oh, I know it's not easy, but for me, my motion would be to have something like that done, because anytime we've had a wreck, that's where it is.
Right.
Someone's in someone else's field, or it's a big mess.
You're right, Robin. This year, we had two terrible incidences right there on that corner. It was terrible. And then I got some irate people saying they had near misses, and they were terrified, and they had really close calls, and they said I could have been killed.
Well, I know that we're not going to put more lighting there, but I think part of that is people driving fast, and then you cannot see at that intersect, the crossing across, and that's why we have so many incidents. So like I said, I don't think reducing the speed on that part is going to slow anything down. It's going to take really being able to have a four-way stop or a red light to get some of that reduced.
I did, on that note, I did ask Lane about, what it takes, and they said, well, it really depends on the number of fatalities, and I'm like, that's cringe to me. Like, why would you wait until that happens?
Yeah.
We need 30 people to die?
Right.
They won't give you a
I
number.
think they said,
They won't, and
wasn't it rumored that it was like 10?
I
thought
don't know.
I remember that number.
He didn't give me a number, but I'm like, I like to be more proactive, but anyway. Time's up. Okay, Patrick Smith's not on deck, so I imagine he's wanting to, he's not on deck.
How many people?
All right, so,
Did he give you a?
Right?
I'm not going to question TxDOT and their ability to do studies. They're way exceeding my level of expert. But did they give you a time frame that this was done? Yeah, date of study. That could be the conclusion. Times. I mean, because obviously one of those areas, and it's clearly stated on here, has a reduced speed due to school. But I'd like a better snapshot. You mentioned it, but was this 6/8/22? Was that for 2 hours a day? Or
I
is
was
this-
given only this report and not much else.
So if we could send him a follow-up email, like how long was the study conducted, what hours, was it a 24-hour study? Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more, because I don't, if that's truly what it is, a 6/8/22 study, it's inaccurate to me. There's not enough evidence, I don't guess.
And I'd like to know how it was studied, because I don't remember it. I don't remember any monitoring or anything out there. I mean,
I don't remember the
I don't-
drive-over strips either.
And I drive that road 6 days a week, and I never saw, is 6/8, what day of the week is that anyway? I never saw anything, and I didn't even know it was, but
yeah, I thought we were still
6/8.
waiting for our study.
So that's a Wednesday. That was a Wednesday it was done, and I don't recall, I mean, I could have missed it, I guess, but if it was an all-day thing, I pretty much
Well, it says,
work 6 days a week, so I don't know.
it says, Terry, on one of these pages, I see the sample set is 125 cars, but that's like 10 minutes in the morning.
Right, yeah. The sample sets just get smaller as you get
I
closer
mean,
to.
it should be like thousands of cars, because in and out, there's no telling how many hundreds of cars travel 986.
Yeah, the cemetery sample set was 15 and 10. No.
Yeah, they must,
Yeah.
Yeah. But at 10 or 15 cars at the cemetery, I mean, that's literally 1 hour.
that could have been me going to the post office.
So does council, now again, we do have, as council, you can say, hey, we want it to be XYZ, just because we think it's safer, or you can make all kinds of recommendations. So do we have any recommendations from council?
Well, I have some thoughts, and I don't think we should move forward with this immediately. I mean, it was a good suggestion that we should probably call some people we know and talk to them about this. I mean, it's an important topic because we're talking about safety of our citizens, and it affects us more than it affects, those outside of our town, because we have to deal with cars going by all the time. And I'll also mention that I think we did a poll at some point, and the second most important thing to people out here was the noise. And certainly the cars are the loudest thing out here, at least on my property. So I'm keeping that in mind, and also the fact that this was done by TxDOT, the state of Texas, and if they have a suggestion about our safety, we should take it very seriously and have a good reason to say no to their suggestion if we do say no, because it's their job to do this. Of course, we have problems with enforceability, and this should be coupled with, talking to the sheriff about coming out here, especially if we decide to enforce this, to do it. And, it's an inconvenience to us to have to go slower through our town all the time. But you got to weigh that against safety and noise and, TxDOT suggestion.
Yeah. But I really think if we're not going to, if the current speed limit is not being enforced to an extent that it's getting people to obey it, then I don't think lowering the speed limit is going to get more people to obey it. So it really comes down to that enforceability thing to me. Now, whether or not it's 50 or 55, most people aren't going to probably even pay attention. By the time most people get out to this part of the road, they're going the speed that they're going to be going. I have a couple of people I know out here that if you lower the speed limit, they'll probably speed up. Just for the practical matter of it. It's like, or the principle of it. But so if we can't lower the speed limit to the actual posted speed through enforceability, I don't think that lowering the speed limit on the sign, it's going to be like a lock. It keeps an honest person honest. It's going to, the people who are now driving 55 will start driving 50, but the people who are doing 65, 74, they're going to still be doing 65 to 74. So I think it's really more of an enforcement issue. But if it does help improve safety, then I'm for it to an extent. I mean, people need to take personal responsibility. If your dog's getting out of your yard, please find a way to keep your dog in your yard. Take some responsibility for the animals that you have, and for that matter, for your children. But I don't know that this posted limit to me is not as big of a deal as having people drive safely, and that's an individual mindset. That's not a governmental enforceable mindset.
I guess my issue with it is we've got a road like 249, 2458 Poetry Road that's posted at 35. It seems like very, it's just a huge discrepancy when you've got homes along that road, but you don't have a school, you don't have businesses primarily, you have residences, more pasture land, and yet it's posted at 35, and you've got the thoroughfare of town pretty much with 2 churches, a school, and several businesses and several residences who don't have big pastures, where it's 55. It just doesn't seem
That's
judicious.
not really apples to apples in my mind, because there's on Poetry Road, there's no center line. The lanes, if you can call them that, where they haven't eroded on the sides, aren't even full lane size to me. I mean, I'm in a small car, and I still barely, I still take up almost half of the road. So it's one of those you have to pause. So now I notice that I generally go more closer to the speed limit in the Hunt County section of that road, because I don't want to lose my car in a hole. So there's that, but we also don't want our roads to look like, they're subject to bomb data assessment. So,
This sounds like,
I think we need a lot more thought, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree with that. I think we need to ask our citizens, and I would certainly ask TxDOT some questions too. I would like to know their idea of why they would like to reduce it, because I'm interested to see, do people speed because they have a feel for the road, kind of like what I'm assuming you're talking about, where they're going to speed no matter the speed limit? Or is it that they only go a certain amount above the speed limit and there's kind of a cap in their mind for how far above it they're willing to go? I don't know. I wonder if TxDOT does. Surely they've done studies in that.
Well, if we took a poll of each of you, so I know my cap is 4 miles over. I try not to go
10%.
more than 4. Huh?
You're-
I'm 10%.
You're not-
10%?
You're not going to
10%
believe
over?
it,
Okay.
but it's 0.
0?
I actually
Okay,
go the
so
You do the speed limit?
Yeah, I
you
know.
do
I'm a
exactly
Boy
the speed
Scout.
limit,
I
the
know,
Boy
I
Scout.
remember.
Okay, so, 30, if it's 35, I'm going 35 to 39. That's confession. All right, so, okay, so,
I plead the fifth.
so if, I don't know what the average
I guess
overage is.
I'd raise, just for information, I was in the meeting in Hunt County in Greenville a little over a month ago, where all these issues were discussed, and the reason I was there had to do with the curve just outside here, is what can be done. And the fundamental problem is, and they've got enforcement, engineering, and education. I think those are the 3 categories. The problem is, they spend all their effort where they have deaths, which is on Interstate 30. There is no way they're going to spend more money to do engineering out here or send out enforcement or anything. Now, that's Hunt County, and I would bet that Kaufman County's TxDOT is probably the same. They spend their money over on Interstate 20 and 175 and those areas over there. They're not going to spend time and effort, enforcement, or even education. And so I spent an hour and a half listening to all this, asked a lot of questions, a lot about what could be done here, and I walked away completely disillusioned. They're not going to do anything because there isn't enough people killed out here. They do it where they have deaths. And the deaths are on Interstate 30, Interstate 20, and I guess 175, and that's where they spend all the enforcement, engineering, education, everything. So it's pretty sarcastic, but that's what I walked away from with.
Now, Tom, I did read your notes on that. I had a conflict and couldn't attend that one, but didn't they say that most of the deaths did occur in rural areas, though? Like, it may be on the interstate, but it was in the rural area.
In the rural area of interstates, that's right. Interstate 30 for Hunt County, of the, whatever it is, 133 deaths that occurred this year, and that, not in Texas, but in Hunt County, most of them were right around either Interstate 30 or the access roads to Interstate 30.
So I think what you're saying is the takeaway is I don't know that we can really depend on TxDOT. We're a town now, so we do have a say in this. So if we want to be proactive and not just wait for 30 deaths to happen or 10 or any deaths, one death is too much in my book. I just don't like that mentality, and I know that they have to figure it out some way. I'm not trying to disrespect them, but we can be more proactive than that. We don't have to wait for that. We have a say now.
Yeah, I think, Tara, that's right. The point is, that's a huge bureaucracy, and they act like a huge bureaucracy. And frankly, I don't think they're interested in this out here, and that was what I walked away with. If it isn't on Interstate 30, Hunt County and TxDOT isn't interested, and I doubt that they're interested in Kaufman unless it's Interstate 20 or 175. So anyway, no, I think you're right. If we're going to do anything, it has to be us. But TxDOT's not going to do it, and enforcement, they're not going to send more people out to enforce it. It's sarcastic, but on the other hand, that's what I got out of it.
Well, I have asked and did get a good response from the constable of Kaufman County. Said that they would try and come out. I did request specific time. Is it possible? Hey, can you come out like on a Monday morning and then switch it up and do a Friday morning or Friday evening during rush hour? And they were receptive to listen to that. So we can request specific times. Now, if we want a consistent time, we would have to then pay them for that. And we can work that out. If that's something that the council deems as a very much a safety issue for our citizens, then we could do that.
Well, Sheriff Beaver sat in this temporary council chambers and said, whatever we need, he'd be willing to help. I think our most proactive first step would ask him to help us enforce it, and not to burden our town. I mean, let them see if it needs to be warnings or whatever. Let's see if we can reduce the average speed by some enforcement, and see if that makes the citizens who feel so scared. I mean, we can start that immediately.
Well,
There's no
and-
studies that need to be done to enforce the speed limit.
So is 55, if you're checking your mail, I think that's still pretty fast in the heart of town. I do. I feel very strongly that that's too fast in the center of town. And
I think every farm to market road in the state of Texas is going to average the 55 miles an hour.
most of our roads actually are 35.
No, farm to market roads that this state is found on, I would think any county we go to, the average speed on the farm to market road is going to be 55 miles an hour.
But in the heart of a town. I think
Okay.
most towns, if you check in the heart of the town, and I don't live on the road, but I'm trying to be considerate of those who actually live on the road, have to check their mail, have to watch their dogs, have to watch their children. You know, I drive that road every day. I guess I work on it, and I like to go faster, but it's not a personal thing for me. I'm looking out for those who actually live on that road. If we're going to consider their safety is paramount, which I think we should, just like if it were, you know, I think we should think about our neighbors. And
So what speed do you recommend? Is 50 too fast to check your mail? 45?
well, I mean,
35?
I have checked the mail at our
I'm
business.
just curious what speed you recommend.
You know, in most small towns, I think you have, you know, you've got the speed zone of what, 30, is it 25 for the school zone? I think maybe somewhere between 40, 45 might be reasonable.
So strictly for safety reasons, checking our mail, you think 45? That's what you're quoting as the need for safety.
Yes.
Because the other argument is it's in the heart of our town. The heart of this town hasn't changed since TxDOT set that speed limit. We haven't became a bigger town with more businesses. Yeah, there's more homes, and they note that in their study, which would indicate a few more turn-ins. But to claim the side that it's a town, that's one argument. To claim the side that I want to be safer for the citizens is another argument.
Well, I don't know how you word it, but I'm just thinking that if the slower that, I think the slower that someone's going, the safer it is. And I think there's plenty of studies to show that. And I mean, just I'm not saying the whole length of the road. I just think from probably right before the school to maybe, as people have told me, there's been several who've said that, hey, just not all the way to campground maybe, but just around where, you know, Tim and Rose Smith's businesses, you know. So just in that stretch where, you know, there are more densely populated homes that don't have 10 acres. They have, you know, 1 to 2 acres generally. And then there are 2 churches, there are several businesses. I just feel like if we're going to look at the safety of those residents, I think we should consider it.
Okay.
And maybe we do, you know, an official town poll. We haven't done that.
I don't think we're going to vote on this tonight.
No.
So, I mean, we've spent a good bit of time talking about it, so I think we need to do some research, contact people, maybe do another
Okay.
poll. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't care if it's on Facebook or not, but some
Okay.
people, you know, a lot of people seem to have strong opinion, or at least they like Facebook. So, you know, I think we need to do some information gathering before we make any decisions on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll move on. We'll try and do that. All right, number 4, discuss and take action on the right-of-way ordinance presented. So we have had a right-of-way 39 pages worth, and the attorney, Pam Liston, she said it was cumbersome. She wanted to start over, but and then, of course, we've switched firms. So this actually came from attorney David Berman, and he said it's more than actually what we need. And he did do a little bit of an edit on section 1. He emailed that just, was it yesterday, I believe? So on section 1, he added on the bottom of that first page, including but not limited to public and private entities providing water, wastewater, drainage, electric, natural gas, telecommunications, cable television, and fiber optic services, and shall apply to all work performed by any person, firm, or association in or above and under all streets, alleys, and public rights of way within the territory limits of the town. So he added that.
I like that addition.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. So this document is 13 pages. I do think it is more concise. It was certainly, I like the way it was organized. Is there any comment on that?
I have read it. I haven't memorized it, but I've read it, and I like it. It is more condensed version than the previous, and it seems to cover everything we need. I think I saw, yes.
Mr.
Okay,
Steve,
he's
he's
already
here.
signed up, so, yeah, I won't call
Now,
on him as
just,
an expert.
okay, sorry, thought you were done.
I'm good.
Okay, so just before we came here, when I was talking to Ms. Tahem of Encore Electric, she said that their attorney looked at it, I guess, today, pulled it off online, and did have some issues with a few things, and I can go ahead and state that here. The notification to neighbors, it said they don't really do that. That would be difficult for them to do. There were several things here. Routine work, then annual permit. They're not used to having to get an annual permit. So it might be that for electric, we might have to have some kind of special thing because, when it's a storm and they have to fix electric lines.
That would be an emergency. which
That would
is
be an
covered.
emergency.
Yeah.
The 2 weeks to get permit, she said, was, I don't know what she said about that, but she says there was something wrong with that. Then the 2-year notification of the plan of work, unless it's a major improvement, she was saying that they don't really have any idea what they're going to be doing in 2 years. And then the one that I did have an opinion on, she said removal of tree trimming within 24 hours. I thought that's pretty rapid. I mean, I think you could give them a little more time than 24 hours to remove tree trimmings, because if they don't have the equipment there. But the council could decide if that needs to be 48 hours, 72, or a week, or whatever that might need to, give a little more time than that.
I would like to have the more information on the 2-week item. So it sounds like we're not voting on this one tonight either. We need to review the notes.
Well, on page 5, let's see. I'm sorry, page 9, under 8B, it does say, the owner, its contractor, or agent shall remove such trimmings within 24 hours during normal maintenance. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty quick turnaround, but does council have any views on that? And then it says during emergency weather conditions, owners shall remove tree trimmings within 5 days. So do you think it could be maybe 72 hours or, I mean, we want it removed. We don't want them staying there, but perhaps 24 hours is too much to ask.
Well, typically what I see is when they trim trees, they have the mulcher going right behind it, so I wouldn't want to extend it.
Yeah, even the 24-hour, if it's normal maintenance, I mean,
Yeah.
Spectrum just came down my road installing cable, and as they were trimming their trees, they were throwing it into the back of their chipper.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't feel like that needs extension. Especially if it's normal maintenance. If it's an emergency thing, I
Yeah.
get that, but if it's something that is normal maintenance, which means they have it scheduled out, then schedule a chipper shredder.
Well, and I do know that we have some things, developments happening in our area, so we do need to get a right-of-way just as soon as we possibly can to We have some things that are happening, and I do think that this is critical to us protecting ourselves as a town and having some say. In fact, heard from a citizen, he got a letter, and so they're wanting to, I can't really go off topic, but I'm just saying that this is critical right now. We need to get this going.
And I understand where you're coming from with that. Unfortunately, anything that we might decide now wouldn't help somebody who already has a letter. So we need to make
Well, not
that
necessarily. If they haven't agreed to anything, not necessarily. Mhm. There's been no agreement made, then not necessarily.
I'm interested to hear what people have to say.
Okay, we have Chad McFarland, Shelley Smith, Robin Followill.
Okay, real quick, sorry, was that in the packet, or what y'all have, or no?
Yes.
Okay, well, I didn't end up with one, so I heard you say something about a permit taking 2 weeks. What part was that in there?
This was a comment from Cindy Tahem. She was talking about the 2 weeks to get the permit. I'm not sure what her view exactly was on that.
Well, what kind of permit, though?
Well, the right-of-way, this is an ordinance for the town saying if you're going to dig in our right-of-way, we need to know about you, and then you have to have a permit to do so. So that way we can keep track of what's going on in town and if they damage the roads and they're responsible and that kind of thing. So we've had a number of complaints lately, and we have no ordinance as such, so there's no recourse.
So she's saying it'll take at least 2 weeks?
Well, I'm not sure if what she was actually referring to on that. So if 2 weeks to get a permit before, I think in the way it's worded, correct me, fellas, if I'm wrong, 2 weeks before you plan on working in our area,
You need to apply for it, and it
apply
needs
for
to
a
be
permit.
approved
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's too much to ask.
I don't either.
Okay, just checking, like I said,
Yeah.
I deal with all the top permitting, so
I'm
that's
sure
why I
you
was.
do. Yeah, you might be a really good resource for that
So
kind of
I
thing.
guess what I'll have to do is then do a open records request, so I can get a copy of that, because we don't have any more for the, we don't have any.
This is online. In fact, you can
Oh.
probably have one of ours you can look at. Yeah.
you.
And it does say draft because that's what it is, so.
Okay, yeah, I will gladly,
Okay. And we'd
Look
appreciate your
over.
feedback as we know that that is one of your expertise, so.
yes, ma'am.
By the
Okay.
way, I think that's the quickest fulfilled open records request we've had.
Hey, I'm going to write that one down. That is the quickest, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was
It is
just,
part of the packet.
okay.
Yeah.
I will
It
try
was-
to look over
It was my
this.
printer, Chad, so yeah, it's free.
I'll try to look over it and get you some feedback, maybe like by the end of the week or something.
I welcome that.
And go from there on that. Okay? Thank you.
Robin, I have a question. Since you seem to know more than we do about this, is it possible to get something shorter, more clear?
You mean like expedited?
No, something
Oh.
that's easier to read.
Oh,
This is very difficult to read.
honestly, no.
Oh, okay.
Actually-
Municipality stuff when it comes to right-of-ways is very lengthy, and there's normally not a short version of it. But I will look into this and see,
Thank you.
and give you some feedback on it.
Thank you. Well, hey, Tom, we went from 39 to 13. I feel pretty good about that. So, all right, Patrick Smith. He's not signed up. Okay, sorry. Okay, Bruce Seat.
Bruce C, 102.41 FM 1565. I like to get a copy of that too. If you get digital copy, that'll work too.
But there's a digital copy available online.
Is there?
Yeah, on the poetry website.
Okay. I haven't really looked through it, but if this is anything better than the last one, it could be a lot better because it's a lot smaller. The other one did have a lot of wording in it that was talking about hot water lines. This is that's more of a up north thing. We do need to get something pretty quick because I've seen some locates on some fibers sitting right next to the road.
Yeah.
Like right back here on 2458, I think that's what we're trying to approach the road. There's a fiber running next to the road. And it still cut the cracks from when they did it. So that's a big issue, especially if y'all start working on the road. If actually major work gets done, gets cut, who's responsible?
Right.
Because they didn't have to have a permit that time. I'm pretty sure that person didn't pull a county permit when they did that fiber. I know exactly. There's quite a bit of fibers out there, believe it or not, down Poetry Road. You got Suddenlink. Now one of our fibers is there.
Your fiber's aerial though, isn't it?
Most of it's aerial.
Okay.
We had to run some underground from the farmers' poles when we had issues with farmers, pole agreements issues. They got that figured out. But it does need to probably gotta get something pretty quick. And if there is any issues with my contractors, we need to know about it. So we can handle our contractors if there's an issue with them or anything like that. At least the ones that are doing over here are the better contractors. We got some questionable contractors that do work for us, but you get what you pay for type 2 sometimes.
Well, I
So-
did run into one of the fellows from Spectrum on 323 and was checking the mail, and he was very amicable. It was very friendly. So.
Yeah, most of them are. You get the ones that don't speak English. That's where it comes to issue. I talked to a gentleman on 2327. There was an issue being private property and everything. I talked to him today. Explained to him everything we're doing. That's what he's kind of wanted to know. So,
Well,
they
Bruce,
do have
I'd
any
appreciate
issues.
any of your feedback. If we could, we might be having a special meeting. I'm trying to see if we can wing it. Put one in maybe for Monday. So if you could at all possible have it, any feedback ready by Friday about 4 o'clock, that would be most beneficial. And Robin as well. I don't know if is she still here? I know that's pushing it, but we're trying to maybe put in a special meeting. We'll see how that goes. But
Yeah, and the permit for like 2 weeks, that's typically the county permits. They
Is
meet every
that
2 weeks.
2 week?
But there's some cities that once a week or once a month too. And some of those go through the same process. You gotta wait till they meet the city meeting, they vote on it and everything like that. Just more rural you go, the harder it is. Like Wills Point, they want notification 10 days, and we told them we can't give you 10 days. We go, and when we're there, they have contractors, underground crews, aerial crews, they come at different times. But the knowledge was making sure people's aware, the city council's aware, because people are gonna reach out to
I'm extending
y'all.
his time since he's an expert, but yeah, but okay.
Long as the city is aware and they contact y'all if there's an issue, y'all have a point of contact. That's primary the permits, kind of let
Okay.
us know if there's an issue with our contractor. It's a big issue with us. too.
Bruce, do you have in the contracts that you signed, does it also, and Robin, you might know this too, does it differentiate for electric companies versus telecom country?
If
Or is
it's-
it all in one generally?
It's all the same right-of-way permits.
They don't give them special, because I was,
Emergency ones, if the fiber gets cut or anything,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna be out there digging it up, because I know we are on a clock, and it starts, once
Mm-hmm.
it's paged out as outage. Power, same thing, once outage, they're on a clock too, to get everything back up.
okay,
Like they don't cut trees, they'll call a tree trimmer to come out, especially Encore,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be 1 hour, it could be 8 hours, but they're gonna get to trim trees before they can fire that power back up.
okay.
With us, we might have to dig up where the fiber's at, but a lot of times, somebody already did it for us, and that's why we're out there. Otherwise that, we never did. Yeah.
Okay,
And
okay,
811's pretty bad not locating. We found Suddenlink's fiber that they didn't locate it. They located the other half of the road, but the part between the Hunt County side and the Cobb County line, they did not locate anywhere on there. They showed it cleared. So, just goes to show.
okay. So, no, I did talk to Attorney Berman a little bit about the electric on that. He said he wasn't too worried about it because they've signed an agreement with us prior to this, so he wasn't that worried about it. But, so just so the council knows and aware of that. Oh, yes, Friday by 4 would be most helpful. In that way, if we're trying to maybe pop in a meeting from Monday night, if our council is available. If his city count that he normally goes to cancels, he won't know until Thursday or Friday, then we can have a meeting on Monday. That's what we're shooting for. All right. We have a request for a recess, 5-minute recess. Okay. Okay, number 5, discuss and take action on the proposed Town of Poetry Voluntary Fund. This was a proposal put together by Councilmember Vincent, so I'm going to let him explain it.
Okay, so Town of Poetry Voluntary Fund. Basically, I don't want a ad valorem / property tax. I think I've described some of the rationale behind not wanting it in here. I'm going to try not to rehash this proposal too much. I think most people have had a chance to read it. But basically, most towns fund themselves in the bulk through their property tax. And I felt that instead of just saying no, I don't want that, I needed to come up with a reason, or another way to fund the town. I think this is fair, which is not usually a standard that government uses. So basically, I'll leave it there. For those who haven't had a chance to read through it, the gist of it is, instead of invoking a property tax, I propose that we set up a system so that the town can receive donations, so that the people of the town can send in donations, a portion of which they can designate to a particular fund. So if you really feel favorably about roads, then you could send in and designate a portion of yours for roads. If you really want a town park somewhere, then you could dedicate it to the park fund if such a fund was established, that kind of thing. And it would be voluntary. Anybody who contributes doesn't get any special treatment. They just help fund the town. And essentially, like I said, I was trying to come up with a creative solution, think outside the box, and basically I stepped outside the box, tossed the box into recycling. The box has been made into something else. I mean, we're out there in the netherlands of creativity here. But I'm interested to hear what other people had to say.
Well, I commend you, Brian, that it is outside the box, and you've done a nice presentation. I think there have been people who've kind of contributed to things, but this would more solidify something like that, and I like the concept of it. I don't think it would hurt to throw it out there. Any other comments?
I'll walk down a few with you, Brian. Maybe you can answer them, and maybe it's something we can consider later. I would question the ability to earmark funds. Typically, donations to the town go into the general fund, but our town's a little bit different. So that's just something I'd be willing to help you look into. Page number 5, second paragraph. Basically, you're telling both sides of the story, of our oath that, to support the city versus the supporting the people. And the last sentence saying failing to use the ad valorem to fund the institution basically leaves the oath unfulfilled. And I just have to take a little bit of, look at that, because I tend to disagree. There's more than one way to work in a budget, right? We increase our income or we decrease our spending. So a vote, if I voted not for a property tax, I don't think my oath's unfulfilled. I think I just want to work at it differently than the typical raise more money so we can spend more money approach.
That's fair.
And that's not always 100% applicable, but that's just kind of how I use my budget mind. Page number 6, you're talking about acceptable risk, and I think this is a really good section. And I too want to thank you for the hard work. This is a commendable piece of paper. I mean, it took a lot of thought, and now obviously we're not going to hit a home run with this the first time, but my question is, when we're talking about acceptable risk, if we are able to do this 501c3, this nonprofit, so people can get the reduction in their taxes, I think we need to list the accepted risks that nonprofit is going to return that money to the town. Because once that money's there, they have the ability to disperse it however they want, unethically, but they do have that ability. So if all that happened just like you wanted it to, and they were sitting on a nest egg of $50,000 and elected not to give it to us, that's also an accepted risk.
Right. Now, again, this is barely even a
Yeah.
full skeleton.
I just want to talk about it.
So as far as, I did consider that risk, but if and this is something we'd need to talk to our attorney about, but if the town entered into an agreement with the nonprofit, then the nonprofit could have to produce monthly reports of what ins and outs, and then if the nonprofit did not fulfill its contractual obligation, then immediately everybody should be notified. They're not upholding their end of the deal. I mean, this should be 100% transparent.
Yes, I agree.
But there is still a risk. There's always a risk when you involve a third party.
So I will comment. So David Berman, our attorney, he said that, any gift to the town is not tax deductible. So I just want to make that clear. I know you're talking about something a little different where a nonprofit is involved, but if any contribution to the town would not be tax deductible. And then I mirror exactly what Councilmember Fowler just said is, Mama used to say there's more than one way to skin a cat. I think you lower your expenses, which is exactly what we've been trying to do with a lot of the volunteerism that we've tried to encourage, whether it be roads or working on town hall, that kind of thing. So to say that, we're not fulfilling that by doing a property tax or oath, I think that's an overstatement a little bit. And so I think a small town, like I said, there's 36 towns in the state of Texas that don't have a property tax, and I'm happy to be one of them. And I don't want some big bloated bureaucracy. The more money a town takes in, the more they spend. And we don't need some $2 million city hall. We don't need any of that. So, so if we can keep our expenses low and unpaid staff, except for maybe a city secretary, and maybe one or two other things added if it's a constable part-time or something, but if we can keep our expenses low, then I'd rather not burden our people. And I think that's what this is about, is if there's a shortfall, he's saying, hey, can we have there are people who do have a generous heart and do want to give to the town. We've seen that. And so, I don't know how many would participate, but if someone wants to give $10 a month to the town via ACH, then they should be able to do that. And I think that's what this would do. I know I'm willing to do something like that. I know I wouldn't mind contributing $10 a month ACH to the town. And actually, there's something at the end of the number 12 that I could discuss on that topic, so I'd like to designate it for something like that. So, and we have some citizens.
Let me
Okay.
flip back on that page 5 item, the failing to use ad valorem to fund the institution, thus favoring the people leaves the oath unfulfilled. The reason I said that is right now we are on a path to not be able to properly maintain our roads.
I disagree with that, actually.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I really do disagree, because I've crunched the numbers, and I disagree with that.
I haven't crunched the numbers. I'm just thinking about the numbers. And with the amount of money that we're pulling in, if we have 26 miles of roads, and our roads, if we rebuilt a road, it's only good for 5 to 7 years. We're not pulling in enough money to redo a road and maintain them in a serviceable manner for a 30-year
But
period.
in the county, there's roads that the county hasn't redone at all. So that's what I'm saying is that right now there is 2.5 miles that I would say definitely need, of course this is off topic, but definitely need, could be refurbished right now. So looking at that, we'll just see. We don't know what our sales and use tax will come up with, and so it's an unknown.
Yeah.
It's
'Cause,
really
I
an
mean,
unknown.
To me, just driving on the roads out here, every single road that we have could be rebuilt from scratch, and people not say that we wasted money. You know, I mean, the roads are they're
Well,
in better
if you-
condition than we inherited them, but
Yes.
they're still not first-class roads.
And it's all relative. I mean, I've talked to fellows that work in Van, Texas, and are like, oh, you have nothing to complain about, you know, our road, it's all relative. But, you know, you get, you know, if you want pristine roads, you're going to have to pay for them, and
Yeah.
I'd rather keep our
And-
expenses low
and that
and not
was-
tax people,
That
so,
was definitely
you know.
one of the things that I said while I was campaigning and during the first session is, you know, be careful what you ask for from the town, because you're the ones that are going to pay for it. So, I agree, and I would love to keep our taxes low, and I would love to keep our budget low. So I think we're working towards a common goal here.
Okay, Chad West.
Brian, I do appreciate you putting this together. I know it was a lot of work. Just a couple things. One, I think we need to be cautious of using the third party. The one thing about the third party is you are all elected officials. If we don't like what you're doing, we can elect somebody new. With the third party nonprofit, you don't have that same option. The other piece of it is also to make sure, you know, there were some writings in the way you wrote that that could be inferred as a promise, is that if you make donations, this avoids having a property tax. Do people then come back and say, well, we pass a property tax? Well, wait a minute, this wasn't supposed to happen because I've been donating to the town. I guess the other comment I would ask is I've asked a couple different times on different things of, have we crunched the numbers, and do we have a forward-looking statement of what it is we're going to spend on roads? Because I had ran some numbers today, and I used 2.7 miles worth of roads, and at $75,000, that's $211,000 that we would need to come up with. We had an expert here at one point who said it was actually $150,000 a mile, which means it's $422,000. I guess the question that we have, that we owe the citizens of this town, is how we're going to bridge that shortfall. I mean, even at $7,500 a month for sales and use tax, adjusting it for 2024 at 4% inflation, that means we only get $93,600, which means we have a shortfall on one side of 117, or on the high side of 328. I don't know, maybe I'm naive, I don't think we're going to get enough donations to bridge that gap. So if we have crunched the numbers, I think we owe it to the citizens to share that information.
Thank you. Shelley Smith. Robin Followell. Patrick Smith.
Councilmember Vinson, you and I have disagreed on a lot of things, but I have to tell you, your proposal is excellent. And I agree with almost all of it, which, given the past, we're doing pretty good, okay? And I appreciate, it's obvious to me the amount of time and effort that went into preparing this thing. One of the concerns that I have, or maybe I should say, I have some questions about the part where you say the town could authorize receipt of funds from an independent nonprofit. Funds could be paid to the nonprofit and distributed to the towns, so on and so forth. When you say an independent nonprofit, are you talking about what a lot of people call a 501c3?
Since it's your proposal, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then, yeah, I was just making sure I can respond to questions. Yes, it would be a 501c3. It's not something, to my knowledge, that is in existence right now. I don't have a particular nonprofit that I'm thinking of, but yeah, it would be a 501c3. And again, for those who haven't had an opportunity to read it, and can I ask for a pause on the time?
I did.
Okay. For those who haven't had an opportunity to read it, the reason that I even suggested a 501c3 is because on your income tax, you can deduct a percentage of your property tax. And so if you're voluntarily giving money to the town, you don't get that benefit. So I was suggesting if the town were interested, then potentially give to a 501c3, then that would then transfer to the town. I would still have to research to see if that 501c3 type of organization would even be allowable to do that. But since they're generally used for public support and community support efforts, it's possible that we might be dancing in a gray area. So, but yes, 501c3 is what I had considered.
Okay. And would you expect, or do you envision that as time moves forward, if in fact a 501c3 is formed and money flows to the 501c3 and then it flows to the town of Poetry, when the town of Poetry is served with a Public Information Act request about those funds collected by the charitable organization, where did they come from and where did they go to? Would you expect the town to respond to that?
I would expect that the town would be legally required to respond to the incoming funds and what accounts those funds went to. I wouldn't expect the town would necessarily have to respond to how the 501c3 processed it, but I would think that if we were doing that, we should enter into an agreement with that 501c3 that its accounts are as transparent as the town's accounts are supposed to be.
And for clarification, money would come into the 501c3. At some point, it would go by check or money order or electronic transfer to the
Correct.
town. Once the town takes it and pays it, uses it for a town business, you would expect the town to be fully accountable for that.
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware that there was a 501c3 that the town directed citizens to make donations to perform repairs?
This is
and
off topic.
Repairs, and improvements to the town hall?
I was aware of that.
It was in the Poetry Post, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that public information requests
Okay,
were made to-
you're off topic. This has nothing to do with this.
Ma'am, I'm talking about the
And
problem
I'm
with
telling
having
you
a
is-
501c3. Please stop interrupting me.
No, I'm telling you, you need to not get off topic, as state law requires. It's off topic,
This
sir.
501c3.
You know what? This is off topic. It's nothing to do with the fund that we're talking about right now.
Well, you've used up my time, so you've succeeded.
All right, Mike Griffin?
Mike Griffin, 6247 Dry Creek Run. I think that the idea of a voluntary fund is a noble aspiration, and Brian, I very much appreciate the effort that you have put into this proposal. I like the idea. I would like to urgently request that you be very careful in how you structure the voluntary fund. As I understand the document, if you allow citizens to designate how they would like that money to be used, those become restricted funds. And restricted funds have a distinct possibility to increase your audit fees because you're going to have to ask the audit firm to do additional work. So it's going to be very important how you set those up. Perhaps using individual bank accounts might make that simpler. There may be some methodologies that make that simpler. I like the idea, but let's please be very careful about how we do that because it could potentially create some pitfalls down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other council comments?
I do. I want to look into, originally I was kind of interested in the 501c3. Since we had some citizens give some warning about it, I'm definitely going to look into it more because I'm not familiar with how it works for charitable organizations. You know, I run a business, not a charity, so I'm not familiar with all of it. But I certainly try to give to 501c3s mostly because it saves on taxes, which means I can give more, and it just feels like I'm not wasting money that way. And I've seen lots of organizations start groups, normally called Friends of Blank, Friends of State Park, Friends of a historical marker, whatever. And it's a different organization, to my understanding. I'll have to look into it more, but I think there might be some precedents for that concept, that idea. But we would have to be very careful, and I'd like to talk to some citizens about it later. We're also going to have to pay some auditing fees already extra for earmarking because of the sales tax, which is going to be earmarked for road repairs. So, yeah, so they're restricted. So I'll be interested. I'll probably reach out to the auditors and see whether it matters how many earmarked funds, whether it's one, you know, what kind of charge, because that's also an interesting thought. But I really like this concept. I'm definitely not ready to vote on anything. It's a giant, and it's a great concept and a good discussion to get started. And I hope that it would prevent property tax, because that's certainly one of the main reasons I ran for office. But in the practical world, I don't see this being a huge revenue source. But I think it's our duty to throw as much mud against the wall as possible.
Yeah, and that was kind of my idea is, I think eventually, without some dramatic increase in revenue, and apparently the mayor and I disagree on this, without some dramatic increase in revenue, I think the town will be forced to go to a property tax at some point. And I've already had some citizens come to me and say, we need it now. And I don't like the idea. Thankfully, in a couple months, I won't have a say in it. So, yeah, I wanted to present something that I thought, and I 100% agree with you. I don't think it's going to be, you know, it's going to be nowhere near the level of funding that we would get from a property tax. But I don't think we need the level of funding that a property tax would generate either. And if the town is rich, then it means its people are poor, and I don't like that. I don't like it at all.
Well, as a side note, I absolutely agree with it. And if y'all want a property tax, y'all shouldn't vote for me. Because I'm not going to
No electioneering from the council table.
Oh, that is true. Oh, okay. I should just say that I will not be voting in a property tax, most certainly.
Okay, so I think this is such a concept that we probably need some time to digest it. Is there any other council comments? Otherwise, we're going to move on.
I'd like to see it on the form so we can
Okay.
discuss it.
No, that's a good idea. Okay,
It's not a real popular discussion board, but maybe it'll grow.
baby steps. All right, number 6, discuss and take action on ordinance regarding electioneering in the town of Poetry. This was taken directly from I think this is Lakewood Village, not Lakeview Village. So because we haven't had Hunt County held the election primarily for the candidates last time, I asked this city secretary and mayor to send me something, so they did, basically did a seek and replace their city with ours, and here we have this document. So there might be some things you like and some things you don't like, and I'd like to hear it.
My first comment is on page 3 at the top, second sentence. Starts with under Texas election code. I would like to say second sentence, but it's an incomplete sentence, so it's not actually a sentence. Under Texas Election Code 255, the expenditure of government resources in advocacy of an issue or candidate, period. Should be is not allowed.
Right.
So I think if we can make that's an easy edit to swing. But otherwise, I like the intent of this document, and I don't dislike any of the phrasing that I'd be willing to rewrite it.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, I like, of course we need some rules for this, but I mean, I did some research before I ran, and I mean, pretty much everything I saw in here is already Texas law, so I question what in here we need that's not already law. I mean, I'm not really in favor of signing ordinances that don't have a particular purpose. Pretty much the only thing I saw in here that was of interest that wasn't already in Texas law was the, page 3, section 5A, 1, when a voter citizen forum shall be held at the request of any candidate who is filed to run for office in a contested election. All candidates must be invited, and it continues. I mean, besides the getting people together to host what they're calling what are they calling it?
Candidate
Yeah,
forum.
a candidate forum, pretty much. Besides that, what does this document do that Texas state law is not already doing?
So that's exactly the point of this, I think, is to allow a format, and I actually think that we could even broaden that maybe if, it allows for fairness, confidentiality when needed. A moderator will not be a council member who is a candidate in the current election. I mean, just some basics that I think we need to state. So yes, it does reiterate some state law, but there are some things on here that are not. And so I think we need to have something stated. So they actually did this, I think, in 2015. They had been established for a while, but they found a need for it apparently. And it does restate some state law, but then it goes further and it says, we want to ensure confidential students will be allowed to submit written questions, and each candidate will have equal time to respond. Under the direction of the moderator, citizens may also publicly ask questions. I know we had a team, 2 years ago, we had a team of 3 people who determined among themselves how it was going to go. So now we have a council who gets to determine how this process is supposed to go. So, remember we had Terry Chambers, we had Amy Cernock-Beam, and we had Shannon Irwin Curry, who decided how the election format would go. So I'm saying that we, as a municipality, need to kind of make up those, how do we want to, and we may not solve it tonight, but how do we want that to go? What do we want that to look like?
Well, did our legal counsel suggest that we do this, or what was the genesis of this becoming a proposal for us?
Well, because we had a whole elections team that was nominated last time, and they determined how it was going to go for the town. Now we have a council, and the council needs to decide how it's going to go for the election cycle. So it's up to this body to decide, okay, do we want to have, do you want to have a separate group of people to determine how that goes, or do you want to, we have to decide how that's supposed to look?
Tara, my question is Mr. Berman. Did he make any comments on this?
No, I'm not sure that he,
I didn't see any, and I guess
no.
it goes to.
I'm not sure that he has this.
I think it was Simeon or Byron's question is this not covered by the state? And what's not covered by the state? Is there anything conflicting with what the state election laws are? And I guess that's a question for Mr. Berman. He's our expert on this.
There's nothing conflicting that I could see, but we do need to, since we've never held an election outside of, like I said, Hunt County managed the election. There was a team that was formed the last election cycle that determined how they were going to do it, the format. Now that we have a council, the council needs to decide how do we want the candidates to, do we want them to, what kind of format do you want to have them speak, and how do we make it fair for all?
So you're saying that the main purpose of this document is Section 5, the candidate voter forums?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, because as a matter of principle, the council has said that if there's existing state law, then we don't want to pass an internal law to the city or the town that we would then have to amend if the state law changes. So, it may be worthwhile to come back and have Section 5, the section that applies to the candidate and voter forums, to be the ordinance under consideration.
So that was my thought on that is, other towns do it differently, but I think some of this is, it is rehash of the state law, and then Section 5 is the meat of it, and we might even want to do something differently than what's on here. But this was just one town that, this was what they do, and we might come back and research it and find that there's, we like the way that some other town is, but we do have an election cycle upon us, and we need to figure it out because we haven't done this before.
Well, I guess, to follow up on my question, I'm not against it, I just don't know what the lawyer would say, and I'd be interested in knowing.
Yeah, if we don't pass this, does that mean that we can't do this?
Well, there would be no format. There's nothing.
There would be no official format.
There's no official format, and so like last time, I think we had formed an elections team, and then they decided the format on everything. And then someone got sick, and one person got left to doing the bulk of the work, and so we need to have some sort of structure and some sort of organization to it, and here's our opportunity.
So I'm guessing it's assumed that, I'm looking at section 5C2, which it says the moderator will not be the council who is the candidate of the current election, but I didn't see, and maybe I just missed it, but who selects the moderator? Is that vote of the council? Because under the direction of the moderator, citizens may also publicly ask questions, and the rest of it, it seems that the moderator runs the meeting in case people don't agree on it. Who is selecting this moderator?
Right, so I think in some cities, it might be the city secretary, it might be someone who's appointed.
Well, we need information on that. I mean, if they're going to be running the show, then that's kind of the critical piece of information.
So, right, so I'm suggesting that we take a look at this initial document and then maybe look at how other towns do it and come back and then solidify it. That's what I'm suggesting.
In a timely manner, because we do have an election that's coming.
Yes.
I mean, we can file tomorrow.
Tomorrow is the first day, and it ends Friday, February 17th, I believe.
Yeah. So, I said we,
Look,
but I didn't mean it.
I agree with what you said, but is there any way we could get Mr. Berman to opine?
Sure, I mean,
Before we consider it?
well, I mean, I think it would be prudent to do that, but I think it's also prudent for us to, do our homework and come up with, really put some thought into that, and how do we logistically, how do we choose a moderator? How do we schedule things? It needs some structure.
Yeah, I agree. These are good points.
Now, this was voted in by, this was approved by an attorney. It was actually our previous attorney who did this. I know that because they've had that attorney for decades. So it was approved by an attorney, so it wasn't not approved by an attorney. So we know that it is at least legal.
So are you proposing to take it up again next Tuesday, or when?
I'm proposing that we each look for cities and how they do it, and come back with having done that homework, and take things that we like and come back to the table with suggestions for the group. Okay, Chad McFarland? Chad West? Shelley Smith?
Okay, since it wasn't in the packet, it took a little doing to find Lakeview, which was like wood. So the way I read that, it says something about the electioneering can be done at a polling place. Okay? So does that mean then that a candidate could campaign at Town Hall?
No, there's a
100-foot setback?
100-foot
there's a
setback.
And that's state law again. It's state law that 100 feet from the building
polling place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but in
from
their
the building of the
ordinance, it
polling
doesn't
place.
say a distance. It just says, due to the fact that they have limited,
Due to
Places.
the sentence that you're talking about is due to the lack of public meeting places and location of likely meetings on public property within the 100-foot exclusion zone. As a practical matter, it is desirable to allow some electioneering therein, therefore the following regulations. So it's saying inside that exclusion zone, you can campaign, apply during the campaign periods, handouts, you can do distribution of political advertising, et cetera, et cetera. The placement of signs on town property within 100 feet of the polling place is prohibited. So there are certain things that you can do, but there are certain things that are excluded.
yeah. So it just makes me a little nervous to associate the word electioneering with the town. I mean, I've already heard gerrymandering from 3 different attorneys that our town is gerrymandered. That's not a positive definition it's not positive to be known as a gerrymandered town. And the words gerrymandering and electioneering both bring to mind the word corruption. So I'm just saying it sounds really uncomfortable.
I actually agree with you on that. I don't like that term either. We could change the term. All right, Robin Followill.
I just wanted to say that I actually agreed with y'all about really looking into who's going to determine who's going to moderate and all that, because whoever's picked clearly needs to be a fair, neutral person. I know we have all watched these political debates, and the moderators are not always equal. It's always, you know exactly whose side they're on before they start, and it's a hot mess, and it never ends up fair. So I would be really interested to see what y'all find out on that and how that is actually going to be determined. And is it appointed, is it appointed? Or if there are 3 people you have in mind, how do you necessarily narrow that down? So I don't know when y'all would be able to provide something like that to us, when we would maybe know something, but like you said, we've got an election in 4 months, so.
If you have some feedback, some comments, please send them to us as well.
My house is either on Newsmax 24/7 or Jimmy Swaggart, so it's one of the two. I've got political going all the time at my house, so I just know that with as crazy as the diversity is in this town, back and forth, we're going to have somebody that is a neutral candidate that people feel like it's going to be fair and not one-sided.
Noted. I agree. Okay, Patrick Smith.
Agenda item number 6 says discuss and take action on ordinance regarding electioneering in the town of Poetry. And then it says in brackets, taken directly from Lakeview Village. Were any edits or alterations or changes made with regard to your proposed electioneering ordinance and the one from Lakeview Village?
I did a find and seek, and I don't recall doing, I don't recall doing any changes. There may have been an occasional, I don't recall any changes, but again, it was just to present it to the council, and we're soliciting for more work to be done.
When you said or typed out the words taken directly from Lakeview Village, what did you mean to convey to the council members?
That I replaced the words of Lakewood Village with Poetry.
Okay. Did you omit some paragraphs?
I don't recall. It's been a while.
Did you add some language?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, now, it took me a long time today to find the electioneering ordinance for the town of Lakeview, Texas, since it It's nowhere to be found. But when I finally came across the Town of Lakewood Village, Texas ordinance, I compared it with the copy that the future secretary was nice enough to let me take and sit down at a table and go through it. And I found numerous changes between what was represented to be taken directly from Lakeview Village and what is in the agenda packet that the citizens were not privy to look at by downloading it online. And there's only one copy over there, and you can't take it. So it causes me concern that council members are being told, hey, here's this ordinance on electioneering taken directly from Lakeview Village. I asked the council members, go to the Town of Lakewood Village and download their electioneering ordinance and tell me if you don't see a lot of changes, some of which are very significant.
I would expect them to do that, actually, so it doesn't bother me in the least. I would
That's
expect
what
them
we're
to
all
do
praying.
that. So we want our council to do their homework, and we want, actually, this is just one city. We've done this numerous times where we've taken, open, where we've taken items from other municipalities, and I don't expect, expect us to do our due diligence on that. Thank you, Patrick.
To his point, I would like it advertised to me that this is a document that came from them that has been edited. Because to say it come directly from him and our last attorney had approved it conveys to me that this document is the exact document that attorney conveyed, or that you conveyed that attorney was good with. To Tom's point, have our attorneys check this off. Well, you give me some piece earlier saying it come from our old attorneys, but now to know that it's been edited, that's a long stretch.
Well, again, this is to present so that we can.
And I agree, but
start
just
with that.
say there has been edits made, or this
Okay.
was the rough copy, but to his point, taken directly from, that conveys a copy.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially since if it's directly from another municipality, I know it's been vetted at least through their legal, which gives me some comfort. So if it's ever been edited, even just a little bit, then it hasn't been approved by any legal, and that's just good to know.
Okay, this is just a presentation and to get you thinking, is what that's for. All right, there's no more citizens' comment, so I'd like us to look at that and really think about those kind of issues and do your homework, and let's bring to the table some other municipalities and regarding, now, I don't know if they word it electioneering, they probably don't. Maybe they word it something differently.
So,
And we might come up with a term that is more agreeable to most. So, so I would ask the council to do that, and next meeting, we'll try and address that, since we do need to try and address that as quickly as possible. Okay. Number 7, discuss and take action on approving Town of Poetry oaths of office for all elected officials. This was from Lakewood Village as well. So the city secretary there just sent me that because we have a generic one that was given to us from the state. And they, so basically on this one, the only thing that I changed on this was I added our seal and changed the words, but it is identical. So, and the attorney did see this. He said, you don't really have to do an ordinance or anything. Just get your take on it. Basically, it says, I don't know how many of you have it. It says, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of office of blank for the Town of Poetry of the state of Texas, and will do to the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, the laws of the United States and the state of Texas, and the ordinances of the Town of Poetry, so help me God. On the previous one, it was generic, so it didn't have that last statement, and the ordinances of the Town of Poetry didn't have that because, we were just using a generic one. I feel like as elected leaders, we should be willing to to support our town and its ordinances, even if we didn't vote for it or get a vote for it, that we, as elected officials, should be able to support, you know, those ordinances.
I'd kind of like it to be stronger, but I guess blood oaths are kind of out of the question these days, so.
What would you add to it?
No, I'm serious, a blood oath.
A blood oath?
Yeah. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think that supporting the ordinances of the town is a good addition.
So if you, I mean, I feel like if an elected official can't do that, then why do we expect citizens to do that? It'd be hypocritical. Chad West? Yes, sir. Oh, okay. Shelley Smith? Robin Followell? Patrick Smith? Okay. It's pretty simple, straightforward, just, I didn't want to just, I wanted to. Any comments?
I guess my comment is, Mr. Berman said we don't need to reference the ordinances. And I'm not sure why he said that, but those were his words. And he said if you read the instructions, you don't have to file with the Secretary of State anymore. So I guess those 2 points, and I'm not, he didn't say why you don't need to do the ordinances, and but I guess he knows about when you do or don't file with the Secretary of State. So I guess my question would be, well, why is he raising that about the ordinances if, as he said, you don't need to reference it? And I don't know the answer, of course.
I mean, this should be pretty simple, I think. If we're going to expect the citizens to comply with ordinances, I think our elected officials should. I mean, it's that simple.
Well, I mean, he is our attorney, and if you made that recommendation.
He was just saying that we don't have to have an ordinance to change the oath. We can just do it.
He said you don't need to reference the ordinances of the town.
Right, and there is no reference, as far as specific ordinances, that was my understanding on that.
Well, he has a reason, I'm sure, and I don't know what it is, he didn't say. But I would say, that would be my question is that, hey, what does he mean and why? So we
Well-
want to vote for something that the lawyer was saying, no, that's not correct, and if he's got a real good reason, what is it?
My understanding of what he was saying was that you, it's not, you don't have to do it, you can do it. That was my,
Actually, he said you don't need to reference the ordinances of the town. So, that
we're not-
was my
we're not-
question, well,
We're
what
not
is it,
swearing
why?
anybody in, we're not swearing anybody in until May or June
that's
or
right.
whenever, so
We
we got
have
time. So
We
let's,
have time on that one.
let's get clarification from him, because I agree,
Yeah.
if we're paying this guy, we need to listen to him.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Number 8, discuss and take action on paying Hunt County election invoices for the amount of $5763.58. It is detailed here on this sheet. All that early voting added up to $2,647. So we pay for that early voting. What did I say? All right, any council comments?
Well, I guess we have no choice, right?
We have to pay our bills.
We have to pay our bills. Kevin Sinkovich, did you want to speak? Shelley Smith? Robin Followell? Okay. All right, so is there a motion on this?
I move that we pay Hunt County election invoice in the amount of $5,763.58.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vincent, a second by Anderson. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay. All right. And number 9, discuss and take action on paying August invoice 5132.42, September invoice 5376.28, and October 4446.34 invoices for Messer Fort McDonald totaling $14,955.04, but discounting the $57,6458 from the Hunt County election and the $575 from the Kaufman election that had to be revisited for a revised total of $87,0546. Now, I asked Attorney Berman about this, and he said he wouldn't pay them one more dime, but he did say that, you know, we did have on video Attorney Messer saying you pay what you think is fair. And so I think this is more than fair because we did have revenue losses by their error. And so
So is this your proposal?
this is just,
This isn't their bill reduced for us on
no,
the,
this is my
proposed-
proposed, I think this is fair. I think this is more than fair because we did have lost revenue. We had an election that cost us quite a bit, and I think it's more than fair to discount that from their bill, their bill, I mean, you can say what you will, but I feel like they're inflated, and I feel like this is more than fair. So, Chad McFarland?
Chad McFarland, 19850 FM 986. Yeah, these legal bills, I agree we need to pay. This sounds like a good, resolution discounting the cost of the election. But it raises more questions because with our accounting, some of these legal expenses were figured on last year's audit. They're being paid with out of this year's budget. How are you going to prorate that discount between last year and this year? Because some of that is last year's services versus this year's services. And with our lack of financial reporting to the public, there's just so many questions to be asked here. But I've gotten to the point of not expecting answers here. So these are questions y'all need to be asking.
Thank you, Chad. Kevin Sinkovich.
Kevin Sinkovich, 11090 CR 2400. I agree with Tara's assessment of with the mayor's assessment of what you should discount from our last lawyer, because it cost us. We went out, we spent time, effort, the overwhelming citizens of Poetry voted for it, and then because our last legal team didn't dot the I's and cross the T's, we ended up having to forego not only, then they presented us with the bill, we ended up paying the bill, and then we just on a really, really conservative, we probably lost as a town at least $10,000. And, I mean, you can probably easily figure the $10,000 over the course of the last 8 or 9 months, had it started in April or May of last year, where we would be right now. So my proposal would be that you either add an additional $4,000 or $5,000 to the $87,05 that we already paid, and then deduct it. I don't agree with our current lawyer that we should not pay them a dime. They provided plenty of services. We should pay them for what the services they provided, but I do think we should deduct the amount of election because it was no fault of our elected officials, and in my business, if I make a screw up, I pay. If I make a screw up, I'm going to pay the customer. I'm going to pay, just like the kids. It was my responsibility. I should take care of it, and I believe they should have taken care of that part too. And actually, if you really think about it, Muster thinks he should take care of it as well, because he's basically saying, you guys pay me what you think. And so he really knows that they screwed up. And that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Shelley Smith. Robin Followell?
So are you saying it's 14,955, and then you're subtracting 5764 and 575, so that what they're going to pay is 8705?
That's correct. Okay, I'm sorry, you're out of order. I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll get our math straight.
I guess one of my point is, and I agree with the discounting by the amount that we had to pay for Hunt County and Coffin County elections, but I do think one thing Mr. Berman said was, he said, make sure you save and preserve the communication you received, which was from Musser, and says to pay what's fair. In other words, that needs to be clearly stated. And then he says, make sure you get with me first, though, so I can give you release language to put on the check. And I think both of those, I think before we do this, and I agree with the amount, but I think we need a letter stating and explaining what and why, and even documenting.
Oh, yeah, there's no problem with that.
I'm sorry?
We can absolutely do that. Yeah.
Documenting the statement and where it was by Mr. Musser. And then, now, the other point that I would make is, prior to these two September, October invoices, they were not discounted. The others, most of the others prior to that were discounted. So it'd be hard for us to go back and say we're charging, don't want to pay some of what we did pay, which was a discounted bill. That would be hard. I think that would be a legal issue. But for September and October, which were not discounted, I think that's a separate issue, and I do agree we should go in and say, okay, look, here's what we had to pay for the election, and in our view, it was your fault. And he does say to make sure we get the correct language, have Mr. Berman review to get the correct language. But I think we need both a letter and a statement on the check, and he does say that make sure you put that information on the check. So to me, we shouldn't vote on it right today. We should, I think, get the letter and the words from Mr. Berman so that we handle this properly, because Mr. Berman says they could sue us. So we want to make sure we have firm legal ground before we discount this bill by the 57,864 and the 575. I do agree with it, but I think we need to be careful, as Mr. Berman said, and I think it should be documented, should be explained in a letter and noted on the check.
So I feel like this is something that we could move to the next executive meeting where we could discuss with him. We could have that letter. I do agree that we can certainly wait.
That's if we agree to move on, because this thing hits my fiduciary seesaw. I want the town to pay less, but at the end of the day, we hired this company. They have been over backwards and helped this city a long ways, way more than the $6,300 that you are going to try to reduce this thing. So my one side of my seesaw says, yes, we need to reduce it, but I can't support it because we hired them. It is our job to make sure that stuff's right. I understand we hired them. Kevin brings up a point that he's responsible for his business. If you sell me 3 tons of Purina feed and it's bad, you're going to give me 3 tons, but you're going to get refunded from Purina. So we're responsible for this bill, and that's just my point of view.
So I do disagree with that. If they make a blunder, they have made several blunders. And so this is one that we actually have a cost associated with that blunder. So when I'm doing business, if I make a blunder, I have to pay for it. So, and they did state that pay what you think is fair. I think this is more than fair. And so I think that, I do. So I think to Anderson's point, I think that we could discuss it further in executive session, discuss that letter and the wording on that, and then we can bring it back. I don't think there's any hurry. They've made it very clear that, they're not in a hurry. They obviously weren't in a hurry because they sent their bills 5 and 6, 7 months late. So they're obviously not in a hurry. So I don't think there's a big rush for that.
And I think they also set a precedent, by the way, by discounting their bills so much without really explaining why. So they've already discounted, and so us coming in and saying we want a further discount, as long as we are doing it legally. I mean, Terry, and I understand your point. I'm not arguing with you.
No, we have the right to differ on this.
Yeah, and so, but I don't think we should do it in a rush. I think it should be very carefully worded and cleared with Mr. Berman on the check and in a letter.
I'm pretty much in full agreement with Mr. Tom, and I would say to the comment of a couple people saying discount it more, I wouldn't discount it any more than is written on here because the Hunt County election costs are proven, and we have paperwork for that. The speculative cost of how much we would have made on sales tax is just a guess, and we can't prove it, and we don't want to discount off of something that we don't actually know, and that probably wouldn't stand up in court anyways.
Yeah, I agree.
But when did we find out that election was faulty? When did you find out, Tara? You found out a long time before we did.
I found out what?
May?
April or May? No,
April.
May, I think.
May,
I
June,
can't remember.
July, August, September, October, November, December, January. Y'all just now want to ask them for a refund?
Well, we didn't know the cost of the election until recently.
That was recent, yeah.
But y'all never brought this up that, hey, we need to tell them we need that refunded. Until now, they're no longer our attorneys. They're no longer discounting their bills.
Well, they're no longer our attorneys for a reason.
Well, they
You
quit
see
on
my
us.
point, 9 months later.
But we just got the bill on this election. We didn't really, and they just sent they just sent these bills in November. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm more loyal to our citizens. I want what's right for our citizens than what's right for this firm necessarily. I mean, I serve the people. I'm a public servant, and so I just feel like that what's fair is fair, and I think that they made a blunder. We can discount. But I do think we can move this to possibly the next executive session and then bring that out and get that more solidified.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. But I would like to have the letter, a draft of the letter for us all to look at, explanation letter.
Okay. Good letter. Okay. Number 10, discuss and take action on construction items regarding the new town hall site. Okay, I have developed a folder that is over an inch thick now. We do have a reworked, try to clean this up a bit, on the estimated value versus actual cost that is online as well. That's right under budget, I believe, online. So you'll see that the actual cost to the town currently is of $11,922. We really haven't spent anything else unless it's been donated. $11,723.59. But currently we have assets of well over $300,000 on anybody's checkbook. That's good. Okay. So projected cost, once the internet, parking, carpentry, bathroom, handicap, ADA are finished, are at a total of $24,523.59. The items in green are still yet to be started. We're still, and currently, Councilmember Anderson and myself have been working on specifically the ADA compliance with the railing and the handicap ramp. So I did, there was just a lot of variables here, and I was trying to make more sense of it. We've got, I think, 3 basic things on the proposal. I want to thank Mr. Barnett from LBJ. He did give us the initial estimate for the concrete parking and the concrete ramp of $8,600. That was discounted by $5,000. That's just awesome. So item number one, option number one would be concrete parking. I did ask him for a separate estimate. He did estimate that with not just the parking lot, but with also a sidewalk for $4,600. Then the concrete ramp, $4,000. Metal railings, we've been kind of pricing those. They get kind of pricey, but they would last for a long, long time. Very little maintenance. They last not forever, but a long time, and with little maintenance. So that's when we're looking at various sources with the amount of railing that we need. That's 28 feet both sides. It's about 85 foot of railing or more. That's going to be about $5,000 to $6,000, even like aluminum railing. Now, one thing I did meet with Michael Whitfield is a welder here in Poetry. He actually teaches welding, and he said that he would be willing to donate the ADA 2-inch that is needed for the inside of whatever he said he can do the, I think Lowe's had it for $172 for the curvature that is needed for the ADA. You have to have the curve. And he said, hey, I can do that in 10 minutes in my shop. So he's willing to donate the 2-inch metal that is needed for that. Now, whether he has stainless steel or some other aluminum or something else, I'm not sure, but he said he's willing to do that. So I'm grateful to that. Number two, the concrete parking, $4,600 plus a concrete ramp of $4,000 and wood railings. Mr. John Stewart gave an estimate just this afternoon for $869. He'd do the 85 foot of railing in wood. So if we wanted to choose a concrete ramp and put the footer, the metal footer there, so then he can put a wood railing up, then that would be $869. That would be a total to get all of that done for $94.69, so $9,469. Option three then would be the concrete parking, $4,600, plus the wood ramp and wood railings that he previously gave an estimate for $1,500. That gives us a total, lowest quote is $6,100 to get this done, total. And so that's with Michael Whitfield, the welder, donating the ADA that's needed. I also have a picture here of what, if you have a wood railing, you also on the inside need that ADA railing. So, and that the ADA railing has to be 4 foot from railing to railing. So that way, and to provide an adequate space, you'll see that Councilmember Anderson, I think, reworked the drawing. It needs to be at least 5.5 feet across. So he did this drawing. So we're trying to be the most cost effective and get this done. Councilmember Anderson had sent a picture of the constable's office in Quinlan. Was it Quinlan or Greenville?
Quinlan.
Quinlan.
Constable's office in Quinlan.
And they had a wood ADA, compliant ramp, or we think that they had, just a wood ramp with the railing. And so he did this drawing just this afternoon. We're trying to make it easier to. Anytime you do construction, there's a lot of different ways to different quotes and different things we're trying to address. But this shows, I think, probably most succinctly that he has here an 8 foot by 6 foot landing, 22 feet across, then another 8 foot by 8 foot landing, and then a 6 foot ramp to the handicap parking, and which I think, and we do have Leland here. If you want to ask any questions of him, we do have that him here to answer questions for us.
Hey, Tara, actually, they're both landings are 8 by 8.
There are both 8 by 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. And what this plan, what I like about that is you also have regular steps, because I don't know, I maybe know one person in a wheelchair, but they've come to one meeting in a year and a half, so I don't know how much this will be used, but we do need to comply with it. But I think most folks would probably just use regular stairs.
Can I ask you a question about the Excel spreadsheet?
Sure.
Why do we keep putting the estimated value versus actual cost? Because I actually have a problem with estimated value. Me and you came up with the number 165. If you recall, you asked me as a contractor what I thought it'd cost to replace that building. I told you $150 square foot.
Mhm.
So that's fair. Everything added under that that I have an asterisk by is part of that. Reinforcing the roof, $1,500, that's part of the $150 a square foot. Surveys, building site improvements. Building site improvements part of the land that has a 5 times multiplier than any property that touches it. Building move to the campground. All this stuff is really, it's inaccurate.
Okay, so we've had this going for months. I mean,
I
it's the first
understand,
time
we've
you've
never
said
had the
that.
ability to talk about this, and
Okay.
we can put it on there, but I think it's a great asset, but it's really, it's double dipping.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. So in order to show that we've got people donating to this cause.
That's a great thing to have on the
So,
side.
I mean, you might be able to say, I think it's important to recognize that we have, for the 11,000 that we've spent, 11,700, we do have way more of the assets.
We
That's
do
the
have a
point.
capital value, that's true, but like water meter, that's a donation that goes back if
Okay.
and when. The land goes back if and when. None of the infrastructure can be taken. Parking lot improvements are on the neighbor.
Okay, I think we can talk about this, like,
We'll
out
post
of.
this on our forum and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I
Because
think we
what
can talk about this
Mike-
another time.
Mike and I have asked for
Yeah.
several times is a cost moving forward to finish this project.
Well, and that's what we're trying to provide here, and you're welcome to call me, email me. But I think, just, we're talking about the ADA stuff right now. And, I mean, I hear your point. I think that we can talk about this on the forum, perhaps.
Yeah, put it on the forum. But I still need to know, what do we think? Okay, so these are great bids. I have no problem with any of these bids. But the problem moving forward, and earlier, we were talking about fiduciary responsibilities and loyalty to the town. I need to know what it's gonna cost to fix this, because I have liabilities that we know with the attorney fees. We have potential liabilities with Encore, and we always say we're gonna pay our bills, which I'm probably the most dogmatic about paying our bills, but I gotta know what it's gonna cost me so I can plan to pay those bills.
Well, I think we have adequate funds to pay our bills, more than adequate funds to pay our bills. Even on here, there isn't the $8,000 or $9,000 yet to be received for the franchise fees for solid waste. I did get about half of that in right now. So, then I'm waiting for our new secretary to put in and copy.
If we move to pay Messer Fort McDonald in full, we just paid Hunt County Elections, we have $25,000. This should be our richest time in our city, and we're down to $25,000 for this quarter.
Well, that's looking at if we're paying. I'm not hoping that we're not paying full. I don't think we should.
Okay.
I'm very adamant about that. I don't think we should, but of course,
So you could add 6,000 back to it and say we have $30,000 for
okay.
our budget this quarter.
Well,
I just
to say
want
that
opening.
okay, so we have a town hall that is bursting at the seams, it's temporary. We've had complaints that we don't want people coming to a feed store, and I get that. I don't want them coming to the feed store necessarily either. But we have a free town hall right now that's temporary, but it is bursting at the seams. We have, little room. So we need to get this open. This best case scenario is $6,100. That's not going to break the bank. And so I think that we've tried really hard. We've had some fabulous, generous people who've come to the table, and I'm very grateful for that. So I don't think we should, necessarily put them at bay just because, you have issue with our attorneys.
Well, it's assumed liabilities. Maybe we all need to read a book on assumed liabilities and how to move forward in a budget. But if I'm assuming the worst, which I think we have the responsibility to do, you're down to $25,296. That's with no liabilities with Encore. If we add the $3,000 liability there that we possibly may owe, that's $22,500.
And then you add $9,000 for solid
Hold
waste.
on. 22, we don't have that money yet. I can only
We
speak
do,
on what we have.
actually. We have at least half of
Well,
that.
hang on, if you're
Okay.
assuming the liability of Encore, then you have to assume that we're gonna receive, so.
Okay, fair enough. Let's assume the liabilities then if we're going to, right? We're at 22.5. And we have to pay Hunt County elections, puts us at 17 and some change.
Well, wait a minute, the elections won't be billed until after May.
We're fixing to write a check for
Oh, for right now,
5763.58.
Okay.
Okay, so $17,000.
Wait a minute, we have.
So what are you gonna assume that we're gonna add to it, 9,000?
We'll be back up to 26.
$26,000?
And previously, when we wanted
And
to.
that's just for everybody to be clear. If you take a $6,000 option, your operating budget for the remainder of this quarter is $20,000. I just think we have to know the numbers. If you choose the elite option at $14,000, you're squeaking by with $12,000. We have road repairs, which is debatable how much, but yeah, I just want everybody to be fully aware of what we're doing.
You know, to that point, Terry, I think I was sitting here just thinking as you're talking, you know, if somebody asked me what my priorities were for this council from my perspective, I would say they were the roads, safety of the citizens, possibly getting a sheriff or somebody over here to do more patrol and speed enforcement, and a secretary. I mean, those seem to be the things that are driving people nuts right now. You know, we can't keep up with the documents and the information requests. I mean, I get that we want a building and we're close to finishing and all of that, but to me, if I had to defend myself, I would defend it on those things, not on the building and staircases and all that. Now, that said, and in fairness, I don't know what alternative option I could offer in the meantime, and I agree with Tara, the feed store is not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, I've had at least one citizen, I think just one citizen, who says that their lawyers told them not to go on to the feed store property, even for town business. And I know of two others who say that they will not go on to the feed store property at all, but that includes town business. So we need a place where our citizens can go and conduct the business of the town or with the town. So that's my primary focus on moving forward with building the town hall out, is so that our citizens have a neutral place where they can come and conduct business with the town. It doesn't take precedence over safety, definitely. It doesn't take precedence over our city secretary, but it's definitely something that has to be taken care of. Because we have to have a place where people can go to the town and conduct
I guess
business.
I just, you know, and kind of like others, I can't prove it, but I feel like we're one sinkhole away from being broke.
Agreed.
You know, I mean, it's just, we don't have, well, and I'm not saying that for applause, I'm just saying we're running thin. You know, we don't have a lot of money. $30,000 or $40,000 for a city, that's not a lot of money for me. That's certainly not a lot of money for the city. You know, so, I don't know, I'd like to see that number grown a lot more.
Mhm.
You know, I think we need to be running with balances of $500,000, not $30,000 or $40,000.
Well, as an infant town, we have to, I mean, I've grown 3 businesses in my life. And what I know is you start out small, you take step by step, you can only do so much, and you do what you can, and you try and make smart decisions, and you move forward. And I'm proud to say I have, you know, currently have, you know, very successful businesses. So I understand that we need to be prudent, but if we calculate the, you know, I'm all for this discounted legal bill. We add in the $9,000 roughly is going to come from solid waste. That puts us $55,000 minus the $86,15. That was, it's 46 minus the election invoice. That's the 5763. All right, so that still puts us up around 40,000. So, am I missing something?
Well, but I think to your comparison to business, because I've built and grown businesses too, I mean, the only knobs we have to turn are people's consumption of electricity, you know,
we've had
property taxes potentially, and getting businesses to come in that we can put sales tax on. I mean, we don't have, different from a business, where we can expand and grow, you know, because we're opposed to bringing in development, we're opposed to bringing in the big chunk items, right? And I am too. But I'm just saying, I think it's a little different comparison, because we don't have like next year, we can't look forward to a ton more money coming in unless everybody starts consuming a lot of electricity and setting up a lot of cottage industry inside the city limits.
Or generating more trash and needing more trash.
Or more trash. I mean, we just, I don't,
That has been growing, by the way. More people have, I think, complying with that. So we've seen a steady increase in the solid waste franchise fees.
but that also
It
means
does have a
that
cap,
people
probably.
are breaking down properties into smaller properties, and it also means that people are moving in. I mean, those are things that we're, you know,
More road
struggling
traffic.
against.
Yeah.
So more maintenance.
I mean, so, I mean, I think Councilmember Fowler made the comment that if we paid all of our legal bills in full, that we'd have plenty left over. So previously, it was 20,000 was fine, and now it's not apparently. But I'm not coming up with that figure. If we do the
Say that again?
amended, you were talking about just a couple of meetings ago about you wanted to pay the whole thing in full when we owed them, what, 17,000 or
I
something?
always think we need to pay it, everything in full.
Well,
So
we're-
how did that differ
it's
from
decent.
last time to this time?
Well,
Making
I'm
that
just,
comparison.
well, you're just saying that you were fine with paying the whole thing in full, and I'm
And I
saying.
still am.
Well, okay, so, but you're saying that you don't want to go below a certain amount.
I never said I didn't want to go
Okay.
below a certain amount. I said we need to know what it's gonna cost to move forward.
Okay.
The bills are due regardless if you agree we should pay the full amount or the lesser amount. That will be voted on by the council. But I haven't swayed in my decision that the bills are due. What I'm saying is we need to be cautious moving forward so we do have some money to spend. I don't know what's misconstrued about that philosophy.
So right now, I mean, I'm not saying that that is a wrong philosophy. I'm saying that let's be consistent. And if we have $9,000 coming in addition to that, I'm coming up with, if we paid the $8,600 owed to Messer Fort McDonald plus the $57.63 for the election invoice, and we currently have about half of the solid waste in, I anticipate that we'll get the other half. That still leaves us with 40,000.
You're on the other side of my seesaw. You're assuming the lesser liabilities. I'm assuming are potential liabilities.
Well, even at that, we're only discounting,
No, you have Encore, you have the $6,000
okay, so
for
you're
that.
saying possibly $3,000 for Encore. So that's, and I really feel comfortable with what's written here. So that's still $37,000.
I've got 46 current money, minus the 57, minus the 14.9, comes up to 25.2.
Plus 9,000.
Then I added the 9,000 in, but
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but can we actually see this agenda item from where we wandered to?
yeah, it's the construction of the new town hall and
So we're trying to figure out if
But
we
we're
want,
doing a budget rewrite.
analysis.
the money plays into it.
So right now, we're talking about discuss and take action. So I don't think that entails a budget rewrite. I think that means that we move forward or we don't move
We'll
forward.
make a motion.
Yeah. And-
Well,
But I
guess
think we also need to hear from the folks.
before we get into the timing, first thing is the septic. We can't do this railing until the septic's done. The septic is apparently not going to get done till February.
Oh, we're not talking about that assumed liability. I mean,
It's
still-
$500.
I get it, but you see why we want a plan moving forward, guys. I'm not rewriting the budget. I'm wanting a clear picture of what I'm fixing to write checks for.
Okay,
And I'm just
that's
saying we
all on
need
here.
That exact agenda item. I'm not saying we shouldn't have this discussion. I'm saying this is not the agenda item to have that discussion.
So we're talking about construction items. We've already approved the septic. It was only going to be a cost $500 net cost to the town with the donations. And so that's not going to break the bank. So we're just trying to move forward and getting this town hall. It was painted on the inside for over a year ago. So citizens, Chad McFarland?
Chad McFarland, 19850 FM 986. Glad to hear y'all asking some financial questions. You know, our budget for capital improvements was $15,000. I'd be willing to bet that none of y'all have a document up there produced saying how much we have spent out of that $15,000 capital budget.
We haven't spent any.
Yeah, you just really can't help yourself, can you?
I can't. I'm sorry.
Interrupting people constantly is rude. And quite honestly, you need to seek therapy. So, you know, you accomplish your mission. You caused me to lose my train of thought. You need to stop interrupting people when they're speaking.
I apologize. I apologize, Mr. McFarland. I was just trying to point a clarification. Chad West.
I guess I was confused with all the numbers running back and forth, but at the bottom of the spreadsheet, it says that we need to spend $24,523. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is the total. Mhm.
The total of what?
The total cost of moving our town hall and getting moved in.
Well, what it says is that the projected cost, once internet, parking, carpentry, bathroom, handicap, and ADA are finished, is $24,000. So does that mean it's another $24,000 or 24,000 minus the 11?
No, that's total. So we've spent, as of 11/9, we've spent $11,723.
So what we're saying is we have another 13,000 and change.
Potentially.
Okay, I just wanted some clarification on what it was, because it reads like we need to spend another $24,000.
And that's total. That's a total number. For getting a town hall, some cities are spending $2 million. I feel like spending $24,000 is a bargain. Dale Bryant?
Dale Bryant, 11139 County Road, 2464. Okay, I'm a little confused. We have two drawings?
We have more than two. We have like 3 or 4 drawings.
Are we leaning?
Leaning. We're looking at all options. So we're looking at a number of options.
Okay. And then on the budget has, on these drawings, I didn't see any numbers or anything. You're going to have to stripe the handicap and put the wheelchair symbol, paint it, signs up, probably lighting. Has anybody checked into the lighting?
I have actually.
Okay. I think you're going to have to light the handicap to get away from the parking to the building. Something, okay? So that's not in there. Notice the building, we have window units. So that's it for air conditioning, window units. Is that our game plan?
We don't need something posh for now.
I'm sorry?
I said I don't feel like we need something posh for now.
Okay, so I think the point is we have a city hall, we understand that, we're gonna build a city hall, but we need a budget. We need to know what in the hell are we gonna spend. There's nothing in here for flooring, there's nothing in here for a front porch and a cover, there's nothing in here for a cover. We have $1,000 in here for a bathroom finish out. To make that bathroom ADA, it's gonna take more than $1,000.
No, I disagree
The
with you,
the
actually.
carpenter work, $2,000, that's just where we're gonna pull the tarp off and finish that for $2,000? Is that what we're talking about? I mean, we just got all of these unknowns. I don't understand, and I think the citizens, all they wanna see is what it's gonna cost. And we've had citizens volunteer to come together and help the city council. We know y'all can't do everything. Form a little committee, sit down, let's get a good solid budget. Let's know exactly what we're gonna spend. And are we gonna spend it all this year? No, we don't have the money. But we can budget it out for future years. Okay, the air conditioning, we can't. Let's live with window units for a couple of years. That's fine. But let's say that's what we're gonna do. I think that's all the people are really asking for. It's some honest conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Dale. Shelley Smith? Robin Followell?
Robin Followell, 10658 County Road 2400. I totally agree with Dale on this, and he is an expert when it comes to something like this. So just like he was talking about, it's not budgeted in there for the parking lot striping, fire lanes marked. How many handicap spots are we even talking about having on here?
One van accessible, you only need one per 25 parking spots.
And how many more of the parking spots are we gonna have?
We only need one, we're gonna have one handicap van accessible and one regular. The other parking lots can wait, or the other parking spots can wait. We don't, what we discovered when we had the Christmas lights program, that is very easily done, where we park right on the driveway at night. There's no, they're not using that, and it's very easily, we can probably stack 35 cars on there.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say this part then. If we're gonna stripe 2 handicaps, you might as well just stripe the rest of it and make it look uniform.
I didn't say stripe 2, we need one handicap.
I'm talking about the other parking spaces that you're gonna have.
The other parking spaces are grass.
Huh?
They're grass and gravel.
So, handicap parking, it says concrete or asphalt on this on this drawing.
That pink section is
Only that
two
space, though.
two spaces.
That's
Okay, well then, I'll go to my other little section here. Okay, so about the landing and the ramp and the landing, I know we have 3 estimates. And I know you were saying that you probably aren't gonna have that many people come in a wheelchair, so the wooden ramp would probably is, more ideal. But I also want you to think about, at some point, people may not be in the wheelchair, but they may have walkers. And I'm just telling you from a building experience, I understand that's the cheapest thing for us, but it's not always the easiest. And if people have walkers, which not to be ugly, we do have some elderly people, and if we're 10 more years, you may have a walker, and you're gonna be cussing that when your wheel doesn't glide that great over a wooden ramp. I'm just saying, we could spend a little bit more extra, do the medium, and it's not a wooden ramp. Makes it truly accessible for anybody that wants to be able to come to Town Hall. But I do agree with Dale about the budgeting for finishing out on some of that stuff. You're not going to get some of that finished out, not with building costs and contractors. And I get that you've got volunteers, but living in a world of construction and building inspection and what things cost, some of that is not practical. So I'm like Terry, we need to have true what we are looking at expending, and I think that would gain you some trust, or a little bit, with the citizens having that kind of information. Because just floating a number out there and it's not detailed, and it changes, that's where people get really irritated about this whole town hall project and the budgeting.
Thank you, Robin. So Ron, I know, Robin, you represent a larger city. I think my background is when I helped with construction with the school, one of the takeaways for me, I saw Dr. Haran and the crew there. It was phenomenal. They were able to do things for pennies on the dollar. And so the takeaway for me from that pioneering school was, you know what, they were able to build a school for pennies on a dollar with donations and the good old-fashioned barn raising. And I was pretty much blown away by their capacity to do such. And so what I've seen, we've had over 100 people on this town hall, and where other cities are going into debt and doing bond measures and taxing their citizens, we don't have to do that. And so I get what you're saying, and I do appreciate that. I think that we've had some really generous people. I think, having to spend 24, and maybe later on we do add a full HVAC system. I did have quotes over $10,000, $10,500, $10,000. We don't have the money for that, so there's no point in us. We probably won't have the money for a couple of years at least. I don't think that that's necessary to necessarily put on today's budget. I just don't see that. we're perfectly fine with window units. We have citizens who don't, that's what they operate on, that's all they have. So. Mhm. So we have full flooring in the municipality. It's all, if you've been inside, I mean, the painters have said that they would finish out the floors and finish up the any of the cracks that happened during the move. And so I believe that they're people of their word, and they would do all that. And as far as we have a plumber that said he would switch the toilet. I wasn't there when the other plumber was there, and he actually didn't do it correctly. But switching that, we have someone who's donating their time to do that. So we have, like I said, we can do this at a very economical rate. And I think the more that you demand of it, the more expensive it's going to be. And so we do want to comply with codes, with handicap especially. We are required to do that, but I don't think we have to necessarily put every single thing that we might want in the future on today's schematic.
Okay, so we've heard from several people that they would like to see a budget for the completion. Let's call it phase one completion, if nothing else. Is that something that you can put together, that you're willing to put together, that you can present? Is that what you're
Well, we've been trying to do that with this spreadsheet. If you guys, I welcome your feedback, but I haven't had any of you, except for Tom, meet me at the, town hall to meet me with some of these bids or donate some of these things. I welcome that. I do welcome that. It's just Councilmember Anderson and I have been doing the lion's share of this, and I welcome additional help with that.
Does that include the budgeting of it?
Well, sure. I mean, but this spreadsheet is what I would call the phase one, if you want to put it that way. This is phase one, because in order to get moved in, we don't have to have necessarily HVAC system. We do not have to have that to move in. To move in, we need ADA. Okay, we need we need the ADA. That's to move in. We don't even have to have that closet built in.
Do you have to have steps off the front door?
We do, and
It's a fire exit, that's gotta be
we do.
ADA
And
also.
actually, I mean, Councilmember Anderson said, look, I can build those. We have people in our midst that could build some basic stairs.
So my next step in the conversation is, can we get having a small committee to finish off the budget on the next agenda?
I think that we know that sometimes committees get bogged down, but having, we could have a few people that come in and we'll look it over and do a phase one kind of analysis. And maybe that would be Councilmember Anderson and myself and a couple other people, and we can come put our heads together and do what you're requesting.
Okay, because I would like to see this move forward. Then I think the most transparent way for it to move forward is to have people come in, give their opinion, make sure that we have all of our bases covered, and get this nailed down. And then everybody can see what we're intending on spending, what it's going to, and we can move forward hopefully with a little less distress.
So in order to move into the building, this low estimate is $6,100, and the bathroom, like I said, the bathroom, I could get my fellow there that does tile there, and we could get that accomplished. We already have someone who's donating the time for the toilet, so I think for probably, and we need the ADA inspection, of course. I think we had a quote on that at $500. So I don't think there's too much to get us moved in.
Does getting us moved in get us to the end of the project, phase one?
Getting moved in would be the end of phase one in my mind, but we can delineate that.
Does getting us moved in get us to the end of the project, phase one?
Getting moved in would be the end of phase one in my mind, but we can delineate that. If that's what you're missing. But we've been working on this for Discuss and take action on comprehensive plan and future use map. So I know over several months this has been updated based on information given to us by citizens. I think the comprehensive plan, from what the feedback that I've received, the actual 3-page document, I don't think there's been too much of an issue with the document. I think we discovered that, or talked about that last night. The hang-up was the map. We had, I guess, the older map posted online. This map has been posted online now for, I guess, a month. So is there any discussion on that?
I mean, she probably says feedback's going to be the most valuable. I haven't got any emails, and we mentioned it before we got it out. There was a couple concerns that were addressed. They ended up not changing anything. It was just an explanation of how the map looked. I think people like the comprehensive plan, like you said. We had a lot of positive feedback at the last meeting about this. But I think probably citizen comments are going to tell us the most.
Okay, Chadwick Harmon.
Chad McFarland, 19850 FM 986. Can I speak uninterrupted this time? I am against the comprehensive plan. I take issue with the way the breakdown of the property sizes are, because you're taking into account property that is not inside the town limits. It's based on what they call the main property. You know, if it's a 100-acre property, that's how y'all are classifying it. But only an acre and a half in the town. You only have authority of what's in the town limits. So, and I think most people that are paying attention know that the main reason push for this comprehensive plan is to institute zoning. And zoning is can be some of the most intrusive laws, because it tells people what they can do with their property. And that is not keeping country country. Amazing.
Chad West. Kevin Harvard.
I will start by thanking everybody in this room for continuing to show up month after month while we hash out our growing pains. We've put 18 months into that, and I want to thank everyone who's been on the committee. Some people have left, some people have joined, but it's 18 months, and this is what we've got for you. It's not Viking. It is a look at what we hope it will look like in the future. And as you can see, we've got little bits of town, and you're right, Chad, lots of green, because that's our hope. That's not what it is. But those people live here, and we want to incorporate them into the community, whether they are citizens of the proper town of Poetry or not. They are still our neighbors, and what we do affects our neighbors. So I don't want to trample on anybody's property rights. I don't want to, take more than we're supposed to. I just want to tell you, this is what we see. This is what we'd like to see in the future. We don't want a lot of commercial. You're right, which is probably the property tax issue. We don't want a lot of small subdivisions. We really like to keep it as rural as possible. I'm interested in item agenda number 112. This is what we see going forward. And we're hopeful that if this town holds together, that we can pull everybody in, because we've got something to offer. Right now, we probably don't have anything to offer. And my biggest concern So, I want to thank each one of you guys for showing up. I really, really appreciate it. After 18 months of being on this committee, I value the time that you guys have given to this town so much because it is above and beyond. And so I just want to leave you with that and say thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Del Ryan.
Dale Bryant, 11139 County Road, 2464. I am also on P&Z. Couple of things to make sure you understand this. The map, all of that green, we basically went in there and looked at everything that's in the city, which is basically, let's call it the ribbons, the streets. That's the city. 311 feet on both sides. That's center line, right? Okay. What the green really is just so you can see the impact of poetry. If you have 15 acres and you only have an acre in the city, well, we're not going to zone that acre, small acre zone. We're going to look at your mother tract, and that's where Chad was kind of getting to, where you're looking at the mother tract. There's no reason for you to have 1 acre zone one thing and the other 14 acres being in the ETJ. So what the attempt is to let's look at your big tract and kind of go in there with the zoning. Now, the zoning map, understand the zoning map is going to be the ribbons. The green's going to go away. Zoning, because we can't zone ETJ, okay, or anything outside the ribbon. So what you're going to see along the different roads is based on the size of your tract. You're going to have a lot of green 1 acre tracts. You're going to have some purple 1 acre tracts. I mean, it depends on how much of the city you have on the property. But it's all going to be, bottom line is everybody's going to have a bunch of small tracts in the city, right? So, but understand, so when we complete, and we can do a comprehensive plan like this and everyone can understand it a little better, or we can pull all the green off and show you just the roads and a little bit of purple, a little bit of pink and yellow. Okay? Now, when we get to zoning, the zoning map, all of that green goes away. And we're just going to have the ribbon. Now, why does this make any sense? Both Hunt County and Kaufman County have development restrictions for subdivisions. Okay? You might as well assume everything in the ETJ is already governed by those 2 agreements, right, in those 2 counties, right? So, what we have as poetry is basically the gate. It's all we have. But what this is going to allow us to do is when someone comes to Hunt County or Kaufman County to come in and do a development, we're going to be able to say, wait a minute, Hunt County, Kaufman County, you need to inform us, and we can have some representatives go down to the commissioners' meetings and talk about that. Developer, you have every right to develop your property. County, which is to work with us.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Shelley Smith. Robert Cole.
Okay, so kind of like by us having this plan, like he was saying, it's going to help us regulate those type of people. And I know, coming from a city, you know, definitely don't want growth. I love exactly the way I am at the moment with us having, you know, less people. But at some point, by us having this and later having zoning, because we kind of have this so we can adopt the building code, so we can, when those developers do come in, we have a way and standard of what code they have to build on. That's going to give us the power as a town to regulate all of that and that and have those restrictions against new developers. And so that is something that we do need and plan to protect our homes, our property, and keep it as rural as possible. I know it's very scary for some people, and I am a zoning inspector, but it's not necessarily, what I do is not necessarily, oh, this is what you have to do with your property. It's more so of keeping you in state compliance, but not saying, oh, you can't have this, and now you gotta take it down. There's state regulations and laws that we have to follow by when it comes to zoning. It just helps us restrict developers what we're gonna have in our town. So getting the comprehensive plan done is one step that we need to do. Then we can work on zoning and we can adopt the building codes, which by state law, we're supposed to do that at some point anyway. So that will help us though with the developers when someone does sell their land to one of them and then they want to come in. So it's there. I think it looks good. I think it would be a good thing going forward. But it's up to y'all. And I know that I haven't been part of it for the whole 18 months. But I can tell you, they've put a lot of work and time into this, and it was very well put together before I did come along. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Roland. Patrick Smith?
The future land use map, there's two of them on the walls here tonight. Are those the final maps of with the comprehensive zoning, I'm sorry, the comprehensive plan? Thank you.
The one on the wall is the same one that's on the website.
Okay, the one on the wall at the bottom, very bottom left-hand side, just below the actual map, it has 22/11/05. Does that represent the date that map was created?
I think so.
Okay. And then at the top, it just says November 2022. Okay. Have there been any changes to the comprehensive map since November 5th, 2022?
No. We didn't want any changes because we want citizens to look at it and feel comfortable with it. So up to that point, there have been numerous changes, but not since then.
And I apologize if I misunderstood. Sometimes different parts of the room, the audio's not that great. But I thought there was a statement to the effect that the final comprehensive map is on the town's website. So if I go to the one on the town's website, is it gonna say November 2022 and then have that 22/11/05 on it?
Yes, I printed it off.
Okay. Now, was that part of the agenda packet that was shared with the public?
This is on the website, so it's easily readily.
Okay. So the answer is it was not in the agenda packet that the public could go online and download.
The public can go online, it's been there for over a month.
In the agenda packet for this
I
meeting?
don't know if it's in the agenda packet or not, but it is online.
Okay,
It
so
is
that's
readily
important.
available.
I didn't see it in the agenda packet, I downloaded 60 pages. Now, the comprehensive plan, is that part of the agenda packet that was shared with the citizens?
It's been online for months and months and months.
Ma'am, is it part of the agenda packet that when I downloaded it, it would have been in there?
I'm not sure.
Or it wasn't in mine?
We're not required to do that, just so you know. We're not required to have that, just so you know.
Well,
It is online.
now, I know I'm running out of time. I have no criticism of the individual members of the P&Z, but what you're calling the Planning and Zoning Committee was voted on when it was referred to as a commission.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so do we have a motion? We did talk with. Oh,
comprehensive plan is going to be important for us, whether or not we have zoning, because the comprehensive plan, if it's adopted by the town council, can be a useful tool when we're working with Hunt County and Kaufman County and making decisions on developments and people that are coming in. We can point to the comprehensive plan and saying this is how we intend to keep our community, and it will give us a basis for working with the counties. If the reason we have so much green on there is we would really like to see the community stay as much like it is now as possible. And I see the value of the comprehensive plan with this particular map as a basis for making decisions that can be supported in court when we're working with both Kaufman County and Hunt County, or talking about future development in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I concur with that wholeheartedly. I've heard from more than one city official who said that very thing, that you need that comprehensive plan and future land use map. You have a leg, you have a leg to stand on in those kind of things. It is separate from any kind of zoning. You do not have to go forward with zoning. You can go forward with zoning, but this is separate. So this is separate, and we've had some positive feedback on the 3-page statement. Now that I think we've had this for months, getting feedback from citizens, as we should do. I did find out that we don't have to have this in a public forum. We already, our format for our town is already kind of like a public forum anyway, so we allow people to talk. And so they said what they want to say, so that's adequate. So do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So, the areas outside of town, in the ETJ, the green areas, we put, for those who are not aware, I'm not on the P&Z, and I don't get to talk to these guys about it because I'm not on the P&Z. So this is, I only get to talk about it in front of you guys. So, if we have the green on the map, what authority do we have to put that green on the map? What does it bestow on us, or what would it take away from us, being the town of Poetry, if we only outline the ribbons?
Well,
So, go ahead.
There's a few things. First of all is advising to the counties, which is some of the biggest things, and negotiating with developers. We want to show that we're involved in our ETJ, and the ETJ is going to be part of the subdivision ordinance, if we have one, which regulates those big developments. They can't just throw up any junky development they want with a subdivision ordinance. And that's why it's important to realize this comprehensive plan is a separate document from zoning. It's separate from a subdivision ordinance. It's separate from everything, and it kind of guides all of those. And because we affect our ETJ, we need to have a plan for it, because this is guiding all documents.
I have, in every future land use map that I've seen, I've probably seen a dozen from other cities, it always includes the ETJ.
Okay, so you say that we can use it as a negotiating point, but we don't have any authority in the ETJ, do we?
We do. The subdivision ordinance, now it can't be the same as zoning. There are certain things that you cannot do with the ETJ. For example, we can't force, restrictions on lot sizes in the ETJ. Can't do that. But that's not the only power municipality has. That's probably what we've looked into at least, but that's all covered in the subdivision or development ordinance. And you do have some powers there, besides just being able to negotiate with counties, which is probably the most practical way to do it.
And then, okay, so we're negotiating, again, the whole idea of impacting the ETJ is somewhat foreign to me. So, under what authority are we negotiating with the
assumption that that'll be part of the town eventually. And the reason that that's important to mark where it is so the town has authority for the development to say development that the town's eventually going to inherit and have to deal with. The state of Texas says it's right for a town to get to have some say because they're going to eventually be affected by those developments. So that given towns some power in their ETJ to affect development, since it's eventually going to be a problem.
Any other comments?
I'm sure I can take up the rest of the day.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Okay, so I think this is the fourth one we had this, or third? I know it's been several. Is there a motion for this?
So we're looking for a motion to accept
Accept.
comprehensive plan and future use map.
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion by Anderson and a second by White to accept the comprehensive plan, the future land use map as shown here and as viewed on our website. All those in favor? And we've got 2 abstaining or 2 noes?
But we can't abstain unless we have a conflict of interest.
All right, so there are, and that measure passes 3-2. All right, moving on. Number 12, discuss and consider items to promote agriculture in our areas. I think White. So, I get periodicals like probably many of you, Texas Agriculture, and we've talked about, how we want to keep poetry rural, keep it country, save the farms and all those kind of things. Like many of you, we're ranchers, and I was looking at we actually, in our midst, we actually have a Miss Agriculture USA. What's good is that. And there's different ways that different entities try to encourage agriculture, and one of those is, giving a recognition, highlighting those. Some do it through scholarships, so that's involving, of course, money. Then some just do, maybe put a feature in an article featuring that person. So I think it would, since we are calling ourselves a rural town, I think it behooves us to try and promote agriculture in a rural atmosphere. So, you can have a half-acre lot, but if you have a big 50-acre ranch behind it, then it's going to look country, and it's going to feel country. So I think those farms and ranches are very important to our area, and we want to encourage the next generation, especially. So when I see a lot of the older ranchers, getting older, President? Okay, any other comments?
Over.
Sit down, I hear them. Okay. All right, so I think we're gonna hopefully get all of our forums working so that we can participate equally on that. Okay. Under general public comments, okay, Chad McFarland, I think Kevin, Del Ryan.
Dale Bryan, 11139 County Road 2464. Just a comment on our little 3-minute spot. Some consideration doesn't need to be given when city council and the mayor uses some of those 3 minutes to talk. We need to clean that up, guys. Come on, let's give them a little bit of time. You want public input, but it feels like all you want to do is sit down.
We did consult with attorneys about that, and there is no precedent for that. If you ask for a question and you want us to answer, actually, our attorney said that we will not be answering questions in the future. And so, but a lot of times we do get questions, and so, there you go. All right, Shelley Smith? Robin Holloway? This is general public comments.
I'll write down 2 things. So earlier we were talking about doing a poll possibly on the whole speed thing or whatever, or what we thought about that. And is that maybe something that you could put on the poetry website? That way citizens could go to that and vote anytime. I think more people would actually go to that and vote, and you don't have to worry about people leaving comments about attacking other people or their 2 cents and say yes, no.
I think that's a really good question, but you don't think so?
No, there's a problem with the Wix site. We'd have to pay for an additional service in order to be able to have a legitimate way for people to come in and not just vote over and over and over and over, or make this and that
So
sort
it
of
would
thing.
cost
So,
money,
yeah, we'd
I
have
can
to buy.
answer factual information, what kind of see, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea, but it apparently it would cost to do that.
Okay, so my other thing, which I'm gonna try really hard to not get irritated on this. But back in November, we were told that, and so, and just to be clear on this one, the only ones I want to reply to this question is either Brian or Terry. We were told that y'all were gonna put a memo together over the meeting and that y'all were gonna get that to us. I'm just curious, what's the holdup? It's been 2 months. What are we waiting on?
It was finished and it's been legal review. We just didn't get it done in time to get it to this meeting.
So you project now.
I'm not in charge of agendas, so I know that it should be ready for next, it should be, plenty of time should have passed before next meeting, but I'm not in charge of agendas.
And is it something you can download, or it's only going to be something that you get if you get a packet?
No, we wrote it for the purpose that it would be published and kept for future councils to reference if it ever comes up again. Brian, another great document he put together, and we worked well on it together. Even though we don't always see eye to eye, we worked well on it. Brian wants the attorney to review it and counsel prior to the citizenry, and I think that's a fair ask.
So we should definitely need to have it by next town hall. That's
I can't make any promises about what will be in any particular agenda, but it should be ready. It should be ready.
Okay.
It was on our executive session, and so if our executive session is put on for Monday night, I don't know at this point, I won't know until Thursday or Friday, according to the attorney. We'll be talking about an executive session that
the authority for the entire town to revoke or to dismiss that privilege. And we also don't have the ability to talk to the other council without council present in order to remove that privilege. So in order to share the document we created, we have to talk to each other and everybody agree that as a town we're willing to share that privilege.
But at some
information.
point soon in the future,
It is-
we are, the citizens are
Yes.
gonna finally be able to have access.
I wouldn't spend time right now if I didn't want you guys to read